The leader fell and chaos engulfed the crowd as the goblins fought for power, forgetting about caution. One of them picked up the fallen man's club. The symbol of strength became the cause of a new massacre. The disputes turned bloody. Everyone considered themselves the new owner of the spoils. While they were squabbling, the leader's trophies lay untouched, beckoning to others. The leader was dead, but the protector of the prey was about to return. The goblins growled as the clothed goblin approached them, ignoring them. They hissed irritably among themselves that he knew where everything was hidden and was going to keep the loot for himself alone. Someone from the crowd suggested waiting. The strong ones had already gone first for the trophy. Screams came from the hill. Goblins attacked the defenseless girl. She called for help, but the sounds were drowned out by the hoots and roars. Suddenly someone stepped between her and the horde, a goblin in drag. The crowd roared. The impostor dared to challenge the new contenders. Their eyes burned with rage. The prey and the girl, everything was to be theirs. He did not retreat. One against all, his steps were confident. The air was filled with tension. The fight was about to begin at any second. The order was given. Kill him! The goblins rushed to attack, baring their teeth. He didn't back down, determination burning in his eyes, a blade of stone in his hand. A burst of rage. The fight flared up like a spark in dry grass. Blows rang out, screams filled the air. The chaos grew with each passing second. The goblins recoiled. The weapon turned out to be a real threat. Panic among the attackers, someone screamed, and they began to retreat in disarray. Promises of revenge flew after him, but fear overcame greed. He stood among the fallen, breathing heavily, blood dripping from the blade. The girl was trembling. Fear was replaced by gratitude. Her gaze was soft. Among the monsters it seemed something else. He stood silently. Thoughts rang in his head. He was not like them. He was a man. A glimmer of memory, fragments of the past, a flash of headlights, a blow of metal, darkness. And then, instead of God, this world, the system, rebirth. The system was loading, but was still almost useless. He could only see basic stats. All days were spent observing, surviving, and searching for information. The world of the gods is full of monsters, and goblins are at the bottom. Humans have conquered the continent, proving their strength and endurance. He is a goblin, but he was once a man. His weakness is true, and even the most ordinary enemies are dangerous. But he survived, despite everything, and knew that his last word was yet to come, and it would sound loudly. Status open. Name, Lintan, race, Goblin level 5, no class, divine blessing, but the system works partially. In this world, there is a way to become stronger, through mating and reproduction. Goblins have no females, so they hunt women of other races. The thirst for strength and survival drives them to robbery and violence. But he remembered that he had once been a man. Reason and honor were still alive. He could not live like the other goblins. The girl watched him, her gaze full of understanding. She knew he was different, not a predator, not a beast. Her words were calm. Her faith in him had not faded. She knew he did not want to live among monsters and violence. She promised to tell the knights the truth. He saved her. The knights are fair, and her support is a chance for survival. He listened in silence while thoughts raced through his head, torn between paralyzing fear and elusive hope. The system is still inactive. There is not enough power even to fight an equal. If it waits for people, there will be a chance to stay alive. The plan is clear. Survive until the knights arrive and gain protection. Then there will be time, and the opportunity to fully activate the system. There is hope, even if the path to it lies through fear and pain. All you need is to hold on a little longer and not lose yourself. He shouted at the girl to hide. Danger was approaching. The goblin rushed forward with a cry demanding his victim. He knew that becoming stronger meant surviving, not giving up, not breaking down, but continuing on despite the pain. The attacker fell. A goblin in clothes dealt the fatal blow. In the distance, people appeared. The radiance of armor, the steel order. He assumed that it was the Holy Order. Salvation was approaching. They ran out to meet him, relief in their hearts and a tremor in their chests. The knight's sword flashed, and the key strike cut through the goblin's flesh. The warriors fought with fury. The goblins could not withstand the onslaught. The knight cursed. The enemies tore his cloak. Status revealed: name, loader, race, human class, swordsman, level 25. He had never seen such a level before. The power was felt in every movement, as if the air itself was retreating before him. The girl screamed, rushing towards her rescuers with tears of joy in her eyes. The knight swung his sword to strike, unexpectedly, brutally, without hesitation. The goblin pushed the girl away, saving her from a fatal blow, taking the full brunt of the enemy's blade himself. Shock overwhelmed them both. They did not understand why he attacked, because he had always been their savior and protector. The darkness of the cave may have been deceptive, but the blow was too accurate. The knight looked with disdain. His words sounded cold and filled with a deep sense of hatred. He accused her of desecration, stripped her of her honor, and declared that she did not deserve any salvation. He accused her of something that never happened, refused to believe in her purity. His words were poison, renunciation, betrayal, cold condemnation. The goblin stood there, a silent witness, not an enemy but a protector. She tried to explain that she was unharmed, all thanks to him. But the commander's hatred was stronger than reason and justice. The faith she had believed in so much was now crumbling before her eyes. The girl stood up for the goblin, confident that truth and justice were on their side. The knight grinned. He didn't believe a word of it, considering her a fool. He raised his sword, condemning her to death along with the freakish ones. The goblin screamed, telling her to run before it was too late. He lunged forward, catching the blow stubbornly with a wooden bat. Everything could have ended, but suddenly another figure appeared. A girl in white. Prayers were addressed to the Holy Virgin. Ephraya's name sounded like salvation, a representative of the temple. The goblin froze. He recognized her from Kelia's stories, a chance for salvation. He tried to speak, to explain that he was not a monster but a man in the past. He asked for a chance, promising to tell everything if he was accepted. The Holy Virgin was surprised by his speech, too intelligent for a goblin. Her gaze softened. There was doubt in it, but not contempt. She admitted that a smart goblin was a rarity, perhaps a miracle. Kelia confirmed that he had never harmed her. On the contrary, he had saved her. He shared food, protected, cared for them, not like the others. Their decision was cautious, to take him with them for study. He agreed. The choice was obvious. There was no other way. A chance for a new life appeared. A voice of reason was found among the enemies. Everything depended on them. The temple, the people, the system, and a little hope. He sighed with relief. The voice of reason had been heard after all. Staying here meant dying. There was no choice left. He decided to go with them, to prove that he was not a monster. The Holy Virgin called, and he nodded. The chance was real. Lorder ordered to move. The goblin answered firmly and confidently. He thanked her for her kindness, a spark of hope burning in his heart. The goblin ran forward, his voice sincere. The Holy Virgin nodded, her face calm. He turned around and froze, the girl pierced by a cold blade. Her body collapsed like a broken doll onto the dirty cave floor. Shock gripped him. All thoughts disappeared, only pain remained. Ephraya's voice was cold, a promise of punishment, not salvation. She promised that there would be retribution for everything when they returned. The goblin clenched his fists, feeling pain in his heart, but the inner flame of strength and determination only grew stronger and flared up. Hope slowly turned to icy despair, and what was once trust turned to betrayal and blood. A week passed. The city continued to live its life, but the shadows of the past still did not disappear from its streets. People gathered in the square. Rumors were whispering about the arrival of the divine child. The city still remembered the horror of the last goblin raid. Under cover of night, the goblins slaughtered 30 defenseless residents. Anger and sorrow filled the hearts. Revenge was sacred. Goblins are cursed, enemies of humanity since ancient times. The Holy Order took an oath to avenge every drop of spilled blood without mercy or slaps to the enemies. The temple gave the order, and the swords of justice fell upon the goblins' lair. The enemies were destroyed cruelly without mercy. The townspeople rejoiced. Revenge had been accomplished, justice had triumphed. The temple strengthened trust. The shrine became a stronghold of protection. The priests called for people to come more often. Faith brings salvation. People bowed before the knights. The Holy Virgin sat in a chair, contented, well-fed, deceitful. People remained the same, blind, naive, submissive. Gold, offerings, nods, everything went according to plan. At this time, a goblin in an iron mask was chained to the wall. His voice was breaking, but he still lived, despite the torture. She despised him for his tenacity, too stubborn to be a scum. The poison was already in her blood. She wanted to see the end of it. He reminded her of the lies of Kelia, of the justice they had betrayed. Her face twisted, disgust, rage, cold superiority. He was insignificant in her eyes, not a man, just material. The cell fell, for betrayal, for mercy, for compassion. Their order does not forgive those who listen to the heart. He tried to fight, but the poison burned inside. His body weakened. In his thoughts, pain, guilt, regret, and broken illusions. Once he was a man. He believed in goodness. He believed in people. But now he knew, faith in righteousness kills the weak. He paid for his trust, for his stupidity, for his hope. The chains creaked, a reminder of what he had become. In the darkness of the dungeon, the last spark of light was disappearing. He had been weak and naive, and he had paid for it in full. He became a toy. Loder and Ephraia mocked, not believing a word. He was broken, brought to his death. Hope was gone. Only pain remained, cold and endless. If there was a second chance, he would drown people in their own blood. Darkness swallowed everything, but suddenly, the system is activated. The Goblin's life model is restarted. Evaluation in progress. Analysis complete. You died because of your own stupidity. You forgot who you are. People will never forgive or understand a goblin. You were tortured. The suffering was etched into your soul forever. You died as one of the worst reincarnations. Restart. A new life is available. Do you want to start over? Yes or no? It was his system, his personal system, that had finally awakened. Death had become the key. Pain had become the catalyst. Again, the goblin is a lowly creature in the eyes of the world. System, refusal, disappearance of the soul. Acceptance, preservation of memory and return. This time he won't forgive. The memory is preserved. Going back a week is a chance to start all over again. Now he understands. This is an opportunity for revenge. Revenge for Loder and all enemies. Goblin Life 2.0 begins. New game, new chance. Goblin Cave is the starting point of rebirth. The system made him a little stronger. Not much, but enough. The danger is still close. The order has not retreated. Death will be the last. The system will not resurrect anymore. Be careful. Enemies are close. The Goblin Life simulation system is a tool of foresight. Every decision changes fate. The choice leads to different outcomes. The simulation lasts 24 hours. Then the reward and points. To foresee the future is to be prepared. The scenario starts. It is in the Goblin Cave. 3 options. Team up, run away, or hide. Teaming up with the goblins will give you 10 points. Running away. 5, hiding 0. Doubts. The goblins are too weak to defeat Loder. Decided. The maximum points option first. The goal is to exchange points for weapons and strike a surprise blow. Lead the goblins into battle. The chances of winning are minimal. Loder and his men easily destroy the rebels. Overestimating the power of the goblins, lesson learned. 10 points scored. First goal achieved. Exchanger weapon selection is limited by points. The dagger costs exactly 10 points. Elven, light, sharp. Strength plus 15, speed plus 10. The perfect weapon for a surprise strike. The blow landed in a vital spot. A chance to instantly kill and end the battle in one move. The question concerned Kelia, whether she was alive and had not been captured by the goblins yet. Time details changed. Kelia lives peacefully in the village. The promise is fulfilled. There is nothing to worry about anymore. The path is narrow, meaning there are fewer guards at the entrance. The knights find goblins disgusting. They are confident that the work will be easy. Get ready. The test is yet to come. A rustling sound is heard at the narrow entrance to the cave. Any goblin that comes out of here will be killed with a hammer. Loder has ordered that girls who try to escape be killed. We can't let them get to the village. The Holy Order is ready to kill even their own for power. Goblin thinks. There is no choice but to fight. A cry for help. A girl has been kidnapped from the Holy City. Someone is running towards them in the chaos. One knight hopes for a reward for her death. The girl does not. It is a trick, but he promises to help. The knights came to kill the captive. Goblin is sure. It's time for revenge. He returns to take revenge. The blow leaves no chance to survive. The knight was dead. A dagger had pierced his chest. The goblin with a dagger threatens and speaks in human language. The knight asked for mercy and showed photographs of his family, his wife and daughter waiting for him at home. He promised to carry out orders and was ready to bring gold and a girl in exchange for his life. The knight hid his dagger. He wanted to strike a fatal blow, but the goblin parried and responded first. The flash of the blade illuminated the field. The knight fell, struck by a sudden blow. Loder's voice was heard, hurrying to help, his approach inspiring fear. The goblin deftly tore the bloody clothes off the dead knight, and, without wasting a second, disappeared into the thick shadows. Loder and Freya appeared at the scene of the battle, surveying the remains of the fight with suspicion. Loder was outraged that the goblins had somehow managed to get past the guards and inside without hindrance. They assumed that mutants, more dangerous goblins, were involved in the escape. Loder kicked the bodies with disdain, calling them worthless and weaklings without the slightest pity. The Holy Virgin would have watched the mutant goblins and their peculiarities with interest. This made her think about possible threats. Silence reigned on the field, but the threat from the dark corners still loomed over everyone. Goblin finally felt redemption. People hate him so much, so he must be a real nightmare for them. Goblins have the unique ability to become stronger through mating and absorption. This time he was determined to change everything, to make every man fear him, and every girl submit to him and be unable to resist. But deep down the goblin was still afraid. Were Loder and his men still hunting him? He understood perfectly well that he had to strike the first blow in order to gain a decisive advantage in battle. Suddenly, someone appeared at the water source. The goblin winced. As far as he knew, goblins only gave birth to males. "Goblin girl, just wanted to get some water," she asked, not to hit her. She is a little goblin, level 3, race, goblin. Class God's Messenger, titles, Goblin Girl, Fallen Goddess, Pure Soul, Blessed by God. If a male goblin marries a female goblin, he will become the legendary Goblin God. The goblin thought that if he married her, he could gain power and become a true goblin god. The girl quietly added that she was only sent for water, and if she didn't do it, the chief would kill her. The goblin softened. He didn't want to scare her. He asked her not to cry. If she screamed, she would attract the attention of Loder and his soldiers. She was surprised because he spoke the same way as she did, although other goblins did not know how to express themselves like that. She was surprised. He was kind. The other goblins only beat and scolded her, and definitely did not talk to her. For the first time she felt warmth. If he had nowhere to go, he could go with her to her tribe. The girl claimed that the tribe was nearby. He thought that now was not the time for mating. The main thing was to find a safe place. The goblin confidently agreed. He was most concerned with the question of where to find subordinates to strengthen his own power. Arriving at the camp, they found themselves among many tents, from which smoke from fires rose. Goblins were bustling around, talking and looking warily at the stranger. Some of the goblins whispered among themselves, surprised by his gait, which was too human for them to understand. Others laughed, thinking him a freak. Despite the confusion, the camp was quite large and organized. The goblin tried to make contact by declaring his desire to join the tribe and asking who was in charge. The other goblins were suspicious of him and even offered to capture the stranger to decide his fate later. However, an elder goblin intervened, wise and cunning, possessing a high level and titles that inspired respect. He clarified what brought the stranger to him. Initially, many wanted to kill the stranger and throw a feast, but the goblin was able to convince them. He had the ability to create weapons and tools. He promised to do so if the tribe gave him access to iron ore. He will make the necessary tools and weapons for them to make the goblins stronger. The senior goblin appreciated the proposal. The guest noted the intelligence and level that affect the capabilities of goblins. The leader concluded that with iron weapons, the tribe would be able to defeat not only monsters, but also people, strengthening their positions. A new hope was in the air, and the atmosphere in the camp changed. Now the goblins were ready for new achievements. The goblins discussed how with iron weapons they would not be afraid of people, and would even be able to deal with elves. They dreamed of how they could travel north and even mate with elves to strengthen their tribe. The senior priest decided to give the newcomer the opportunity to prove himself and prove his strength. Within 3 days he had to mine iron ore and make a weapon, otherwise he and his companion would die. The priest confidently walked into the tent, leaving behind a tense atmosphere. The goblin understood that he was unable to resist now, and decided to buy time in order to have time to create a weapon and become stronger. However, the path to mining the ore turned out to be difficult. On the way, Yue expressed fatigue several times, for which she was punished. The new goblin firmly ordered the ore to be collected. warning that everyone was obliged to bring at least a small piece. The goblins were afraid. There was someone in front of them with an iron weapon, capable of beating them, and they could not disobey. Meanwhile, once they have their own weapons, they will be able to finish him off right away. To do this, the newcomer had to undergo severe tests and significantly strengthen his abilities and spirit. He also remembered that if a goblin man marries a goblin woman, he becomes a goblin god. He knew it was time to grow and become stronger. He turned to Yue, a young goblin to whom he promised protection. To realize his plans, he needed her help. Yue hesitated at first, but then agreed. Their relationship moved to a new level. They kissed, symbolizing the beginning of a new union and hope for the future. She wanted him to become stronger and asked him to give her the opportunity to bear him a child. She was to give birth to 7 children. The newcomer received a significant boost, bonuses to attack, health, and defense. The little goblin gradually rose through the levels, acquiring new titles and abilities. He gradually transformed into an increasingly blessed and powerful being, overcoming difficulties and enemies. Increasing his level not only increased his strength, but also improved his appearance. Clearly defined muscle cubes appeared. He confidently declared his loyal belonging to her and swore to always protect her relentlessly. Suddenly, loud cries for help were heard, sharply disrupting the long-awaited peace around. The goblins screamed in panic at the appearance of the demonic wolf, trying to escape and protect themselves from the dangerous beast. The goblin stopped abruptly, noticing that one of his fleeing tribesmen was clutching a piece of iron ore in his hands. He knew instantly. The ore had been found, but with it came trouble. Heavy breathing, stomping, and a shadow moving too fast. The goblin clutched his weapon and rushed towards the monster. The blow was accurate. The wolf, not expecting resistance, fell to the ground with a dull groan, leaving black spots of blood on the grass. Approaching his frightened fellow, the goblin extended his hand, demanding the ore. He silently handed over the find. Squeezing his fingers on the heavy piece, he nodded with satisfaction and promised that he would pay for new finds with weapons. The work began immediately. His whole appearance spoke of concentration, his face in shadow, his hands working tirelessly. One of them even proudly declared that this warrior not only killed the wolf, but also saved the entire squad. When the weapon was presented, the tribe buzzed with delight. The iron spear shone in their hands as a symbol of new strength. Even the leader, who was watching the events with apprehension, could not hide his surprise. But in his eyes, behind the mask of a smile, there was calculation. He issued a new challenge, to make 50 guns in 2 days. Only if he succeeded would the newcomer be allowed to stay. The goblins murmured quietly in confusion, admitting that the test had been cruel, but truly fair. The girl expressed her willingness to help, as did several other goblins. Time was short. When the appointed day arrived, the weapons stood in neat rows. The chief walked along, examining each item. He nodded. And he announced that the celebration in honor of the new brother joining the tribe would take place today. In the evening, all the goblins ate their fill and laughed around the fires. Iron will and a little luck. That's what changed their fate. The tribe gathered around a large fire. Meat was roasting on the fire. It was a sacrifice in honor of Ling Tian. Yue reported that everything had been carefully prepared specifically for him and his arrival in advance. He started to eat, but suddenly felt a tickle in his throat and it became difficult to breathe. His body weakened and he almost fell. The old priest, the head of the tribe, watched this with mockery. He knew that the poison would act quickly. The newcomer acted too confidently, too cleverly won the goblin's trust. The leader firmly decided that the time had come to finally put an end to this lawlessness once and for all. He grabbed Yue tightly, wanting to humiliate her and prove his absolute superiority over everyone around him. But he didn't have time. Ling Tian stood up. His breathing evened out. He had foreseen everything in advance. The poison was only part of his plan. With a sudden jerk, he rushed forward, snatching the hidden blade. The blow was accurate. The fight began. The goblins were both terrified and delighted as they watched the intense and dangerous fight before them. The leader tried to fight back, but Ling Tian was already stronger, both physically and spiritually. He crushed the enemy with a powerful blow in battle, and he fell to the ground, struck dead with no chance of salvation. Ling Tian stood over the fallen body. His power had been established in battle. The tribe was silent, and then burst into cheers. A new era had begun. an era of a strong leader, ready to lead them into battle against humans, elves, and anyone who stood in their way. A great revenge began, which no one could stop. Its power grew every day and was merciless. An elven girl watched what was happening from behind the thick bushes, hiding in the shadows. When she returned to her hometown, the elves could not keep up with her, begging her to wait. Her mother was busy and did not receive her now. The girl was in a hurry, carrying an important message that could change the course of events and save many from trouble. In the palace, her mother, the queen, ate grapes with lazy pleasure, resting in the shade of the elves and a tent made of the finest fabrics. Noticing her daughter, she was about to continue her meal, but curiosity got the better of her. They stopped her, called her a fool, and ordered her to speak since she was in such a hurry with an important message. The princess told about a tribe of goblins who were considered weak and insignificant creatures. In the enchanted forest, she saw something that greatly shook her usual and stable worldview. The traces of a struggle, the smell of goblins, and the body of a huge bear, the most ferocious predator, pointed to something impossible. A few days ago she noticed how a young goblin killed the old chieftain, and now he led the tribe to new strength. The queen, without expressing much surprise, ordered a detachment to be assembled. The task was to destroy the goblins, but leave a few alive. Goblin hearts were found to be used to create tonic potions for male elves. The princess was embarrassed, but the queen praised her and even offered her a handsome young elf as a reward. She refused, citing an evening check. The mother only smirked, watching her daughter disappear. Meanwhile, in the forest, among the trees, elven houses woven from branches and leaves were discussed. About 30 buildings rose above the ground, creating a whole complex on the tops of trees and rocks. The new goblin commander prepared for the offensive. He promised to capture the elves, and the warriors happily awaited the coming day. Shouts of approval and admiration for their leader echoed through the treetops. He calculated that the elves had 30 houses, each with 2 inhabitants, which meant there were about 60 of them. In addition, the mines and security, that's 70. After the death of the former leader, the goblin did not waste time. He organized the extraction of resources, sent his relatives to hunt, to learn and strengthen the tribe. Now it's time to start preparing for the offensive. After successfully hunting a wild pig, his physical strength increased. After killing a mountain monkey, he mastered the skill of purification. The group, while fighting the snake, acquired the ability to secrete poison suitable for coating weapons. The levels were rapidly increasing. The leader, who was once a common goblin, was now level 18. His titles showed his progress. He became a monster hunter, a slayer of the beasts of the forest. The total combat power of his body exceeded 250 units, making him stronger than the elves, whose average was no more than 200. The elves soon learned that their enemy has changed. He has become intelligent, disciplined, and deadly. He plans to secretly attack the elves. Caution is important for success. The system activates the skill, activation of the fight between goblins and elves. He leads an army of goblins against a tribe of elves, but the elves notice the goblins. It's a trap. Goblins are captured, facing death penalty and public disgrace. Hope is gone, plans are ruined, mission score is 0. He realizes that he is trapped because someone is watching his every move. The goblins' hearing and sensitivity are at their best, and by concentrating he managed to find the tracks. It turned out that the goblins were preparing an attack on the elven tribe. The daughter wanted to pass on the information to her mother. She accepted the news. Suddenly, an arrow pierced her body, and she felt her strength slowly leaving her forever. It was an elf with a deeply embedded arrow in her leg from which a burning poison was coming, slowly penetrating every cell of the body. It's not that easy to catch her, but sooner or later she fell into a trap. They started the capture. They ordered to grab everyone. The goblin liquid had an effect on the elf girl. The main elf was kept alive. She was expected in advance. This greatly increased the chances of defeating the elves. The goblins kidnapped the princess and are preparing an attack on the elf clan. The elves will not forgive the kidnappers. The elf threatens to destroy all the goblins in the forest, leaving only a few alive. The goblins are confident in their strength because there are too many of them in the jungle to destroy them all. The chieftain intended to increase the number of his offspring, using the princess as a key element of his plan. The mother, greatly worried about Kasana's long absence, decides to send a detachment of people to search for her. Suddenly the attack began. The arriving arrows quickly struck the guards, destroying them one by one. The Goblin reported the capture of Kasana. Now he controls the territory and has complete power here. He assures them that they will soon have a family and offers to join the invaders, threatening the enemies. After the fight, the elven mother lay on the floor, her body pierced by the liquid from the Goblin's arrow. This liquid instantly paralyzes and destroys living things, causing fear and helplessness. The Goblins came to settle scores and seize power, and the new leader was a cause for concern. The time to resist was over. The elves cried out loudly for help, but their strength was quickly waning. The Goblins have already become equal in strength to the elves, changing the previous balance of power and fear. The realization of the new reality required immediate action and careful preparation for the inevitable changes ahead. The elven mother was ready to sacrifice herself for the sake of the Goblin's power and for the future of her children. Mother was deeply worried, realizing that the fate and future of the elves were now closely linked with the Goblins. She felt a deep guilt for underestimating the enemy and understood the grave consequences this had brought to her people. Among the elves, only women and children remained, and now they had to seek cooperation with the Goblins. The elves confined in cages were given 3 meals a day, but their lives were under constant supervision. Mother asked to take care of her children. She could not just watch them grow from the cage. The little Goblins played with the elven children, the influence of their characteristics changing their fates. Yue couldn't cope alone, so support was needed. There was hope for the rise of the clan, and the strengthening of the tribe's strength through the growth and development of children. The forces grew, allowing us to count on victory over the enemy in the near future. Half a month passed, and preparations for the decisive meeting with the enemy were gaining momentum. The cries of babies could be heard. The elves were giving birth to goblin children. Many women were afraid of their offspring, considering them disgusting. Lentian asked about the number of newborns. Yue answered, about 30 to 40. Kasana gave birth in pain and fear, but her mother supported her, encouraging her not to give up. The birth was difficult, and help was urgently needed, as this was Kasana's first birth. The elf screamed in pain and despair, but Lentian reminded her that these were his children too, and provided assistance. After much and intense effort, Kasana's condition improved significantly, and the babies were born healthy. Lentian actively helped during the birth, demonstrating care and skill, for which he earned sincere praise and gratitude. Some of the Goblins were reluctant to obey, but the chieftain sternly reminded the elves of the need for rest. The leader warned that without a quick recovery, women in labor risked dying at this critical moment. From now on, no one dared touch the elves without his knowledge. The elf noticed that he was different from the other Goblins. He knew he was doing the right thing because everyone needs to regain their strength to continue to survive. A new plot began. Goblins captured elves and forcibly impregnated them to strengthen the race. Healthy goblins with improved qualities were born. The tribe members became stronger, and he will decide to take revenge on Loder. He went to Guangming, 3 options. Did everything himself, plus 50, goblins helped, plus 30, waited and watched the changes, plus 10. He would find them soon, despite the strength of their allies. His characteristics allowed him to kill Loder. He chose this option. He caught the moment when Loder was alone and attacked. The opponent was caught off guard and almost died. But the Loder's assistant, the Saint of the Sword, saved him. Lentian died in battle, and the group passed into the capital, never to be seen again. He had no chance against the mighty sword. Rating: 30 out of 100. Reward: 30 life points. Completion time: 9 days. He watched the Ulfikai and Yue, who were carrying fruits. Yue would have to lead the tribe for a few days. Lentian was going to go to the human territory despite the danger. Yue was against it, warning about the deadly threat. Ling Tian hated humans and wanted revenge. The Ulfi woman offered to help Ling Tian with stealth skills. Lentian was surprised by the concern for his safety. The elf was afraid that if Lentian died, the elf tribe would suffer. The children and mother of the elves and Yue hoped for his return alive. Yue promised to take care of the tribe in Lentian's absence. Ling Tian knew what to do and set out. Ling Tian found himself in a city where patrols and defenses had noticeably increased. He wondered if the Saint Dreamer had appeared here. He asked around for a long time, but no one had heard of her. Strange. In the square he noticed a large rating, where all the brave knight groups and their achievements were listed. The first were the gold-level swordsmen, who took first place. Then came the silver rescue teams. Ling Tian realized that without finding important clues, his plan for revenge was doomed to failure and ruin. In the tavern, Ling Tian listened to conversations and stories about the heroic rescue from the terrible demonic monkey. Ephraia arrived in time to save Loder. He told the story, and the audience praised the captain for his feat. The monkey was funny, they recalled with a grin. Percy was asked about his group, but he quickly waved it off. He is confident that the team can handle it and can win the bet. Recently, an evil dragon began stealing cattle and attacking people. It was said that it was better to deal with the dragon than to create disorder. If the dragon attacked Guangming, the city would be plunged into chaos. But some knights were not afraid, thinking him an ordinary dragon. The holy swordswoman is already on her way. She is Percy's mentor. With her help, they hoped to defeat the dragon without extra troops. Loder invited the saint to defeat the enemy together. If all goes well, Loder will become the hero of the city. The mood is lifted, and everyone decides to celebrate the upcoming victory. The dragon appeared as a last chance to change the course of events and turn fate in his favor. The teacher prayed in the temple. The city rejoices. No one dares to meet the dragon face to face. 10 hunters are stationed around the city as ordered. If you fail, the swordswoman's reputation will be lost. The holy swordswoman is beautiful and strong, but her heart is closed. The city begins to evacuate. The dragon is already close. Panic grips the streets. People flee in fear. Loder and his partner head for the city wall. The dragon is already at the gates. The soldiers are ready for battle. Time is running out. The game is about to begin. Fate will be decided now. The dragons were approaching the city. Percy and the swordswoman watched closely. Everyone was preparing to hunt dragons. The guns were loaded. The battle began. The hunters opened fire, but the arrows did no harm. The purple-golden mother of dragons was rapidly approaching the walls. The crossbows were useless. The wall was on the verge of collapse. The fire-breathing mother breathed fire, sowing panic among the defenders. The swordswoman took it upon herself to stop the monster. The remaining fighters continued to defend the city, strictly observing the battle order and not allowing the enemy to break through. The goblins stood on the hill and watched the events closely, amazed by the dragon's mighty strength in battle. The Mother of Dragons has shown a power that has proven to be far greater than all expectations and predictions. Purple Golden Mother Dragon is a level 79 ancient dragon, the ruler of the island dragons, a real monster. The goblin chieftain watched the battle closely, assessing the strength and capabilities of his opponents. Alice, level 80 human holy swordswoman, the strongest swordsman and representative of humanity. Her sword penetrated deep into the dragon's body, and the swordswoman's strength almost rivaled that of the most terrible monster. The dragon's mother seemed weaker, but her health remained high. The swordswoman quickly tired, giving a chance for a new attack. The chieftain hoped to use this moment for revenge and penetration into the city. The goblins shouted loudly, raising their fighting spirit, preparing for a decisive and brutal attack on the enemy. It is difficult to defeat a dragon, but a beast is a beast even in the forest. Loder was sure that people are capable of many things. People were scared and didn't believe that goblins dared to come to the city. The girl ran, calling for help. There were few dragons left. There was hope for survival. Ephraia and her allies rushed to attack the goblins. The goblins screamed and tried to hold back the onslaught. The captain and the holy maiden were trapped. A net and arrows surrounded them. The goblin chieftain suddenly appeared from behind, attacking the enemy with an unexpected and swift blow. The chieftain confidently declared his victory. The goblins received orders to take the captured out of the city. The rest had to climb the walls for defense. The city defenders were confused by the sudden attack. The goblins waited until the enemy was at its most vulnerable to deliver the decisive blow. The swordswoman fought the reincarnated dragon girl. The enemies considered her defenseless and doomed. The decisive battle for the dragon's blood was approaching. Loder was fighting the remaining dragons and goblins at this time, the swordswoman thought. The explosion shook the battlefield powerfully, adding to the chaos and confusion. It seemed that the battle with the goblins was far from over. The holy swordswoman continued to fight, but suddenly the girl turned into a dragon and quickly flew away. The swordswoman was filled with determination and was ready to overcome all obstacles to reach the dragon's nest. The swordswoman returned to the city, but Loder was nowhere to be found. The goblins had been destroyed. Loder and Ephraia were captured by higher-level goblins who outnumbered them. People were worried that these goblins were far from the same as those they had encountered before, and Loder had no time to do anything. The swordswoman promised to destroy all the goblin tribes in the enchanted forest. She was asked to stay in the city, fearing the return of the dragon and goblins, because the inhabitants of the temple are more important than a couple of warriors. Loder was accused of his own weakness, noting that even goblins were able to defeat him, not to mention dragons. The chief returned, and the goblins rejoiced. Along with him, he brought 2 new captives, humans who immediately attracted attention. The goblins admired the captured ones, calling them pretty and discussing their rare beauty and value. The joy of the tribe was palpable. The return of the leader and new trophies gave them strength and confidence. The bound people sit on the cold ground, surrounded by goblins in the shade of ancient trees. The poison eats away at Euphraia's body. Her skin turns pale, and the light in her eyes grows dimmer with each passing second. Loder watches her, helpless, his teeth clenched in rage and fear for her life. The goblin chieftain approaches, his claws gleaming, his steps heavy, and the air thick with menace. Euphraia flinches as the goblin's claws dig into her leg, blood running down her skin. Loder strained with all his might, but the strong bonds did not allow him to protect her from the threat. The goblin leans closer, his eyes full of malice. He knows that fear is stronger than pain. He retreated, leaving deep, bloody marks from his sharp claws on Euphraia's leg. The silence is broken by Loder's scream, the despair and anger in it unable to change the outcome. The leader chuckles with confidence, as if he foresees all the moves of the enemies and controls the outcome of the battle. He whispers under his breath, remembering the holy swordswoman like a trophy that has yet to be captured. The forest is silent, hiding those who covered their tracks, and no one knows where to look for the captives. The goblin leads the second generation into the forest, bringing death to all monsters in its path. He watches Loder closely, grinning predatorily, as if preparing for some excruciating torture. Evolution is his goal, and nothing should interfere with the next stage. The goblins surround her, ready for a cruel game. She falls, and the ground turns scarlet. Loder can't watch anymore. It's too late. Lentian celebrates his first victory in this chapter. The goblin stands guard, ready for anything. The leader's orders are clear. Hold on, don't kill. Ephraia is tied up, her body exhausted, but her spirit not yet broken. Loder begs her to hold on, not to give in. Loder tries to get up, but fear chokes his voice, and he can't speak. The argument is interrupted by a scream. Fear flares up in the darkness. The lazy man despises people. His rage has been boiling for a long time. Mother and daughter know that these people are worse than they thought. Lentian promised revenge, and everything is going according to plan. Even goblins fear him. He is special, dangerous. He is strong, and this is more frightening than any wounds. The elven mother seems subdued, her gaze dimming. The leader will be back soon, and her heart sinks. The second-generation goblins, way ahead of schedule, are back and wreaking havoc. In front of them stands a mad goblin, level 33. Race: goblin, class, warrior, body breathes with strength, improved attack, armor like a rock. His titles are Son of Elves, Slayer of Monsters. He bears the seal of the blessing of the gods. He looks forward, and even the darkness retreats. This isn't just a battle anymore. This is the beginning of the end. He's worthy, level 50, stats almost like the boss. The hunt was successful. The monsters nearby were destroyed. The path lay to the west. In the dark forest, we encountered large goblins, who, like real predators, exterminate their small relatives, causing terror. The west hides the Bloodtooth tribe, goblins larger than usual. Large goblins are a possible force for the third generation. Their leaders can change the course of the war. If we capture them, the chances against the humans will increase. Loder scoffs. All goblins are just bugs. He is sure that nothing can compare to the human army. The leader remembers him and throws him to the goblins. Loder is in a panic. He doesn't understand what awaits him. The goblins are approaching, anticipating meat and blood. Loder screams, but only an echo answers. Euphraiia looks away, closing her eyes. The darkness grows thicker, enveloping everything around, and hope evaporates, becomes thinner than air, and disappears with every minute. Several hours have passed, the fire is crackling, the goblins are roasting meat. Lentian talks about the next attack on another tribe. The plan is simple: attack and capture the enemy leader. A name is chosen. From now on, they are the Tianmao tribe. The goblins are inspired. A new name, a new path. But the enemy is stronger, there are more of them, and they are more impressive in stature. Lin Tian is not worried, the plan is already prepared. His gaze falls on the tied-up Euphria. Her fate will be part of the big game. From the top of the hill you can see a magical forest. The goal is close. There is a hidden power there that you will have to face. The goblins freeze, sensing danger. There are more of them than usual. They say the leader of the Bloodtooth tribe is here. Not just any leader, but an elite, battle-hardened one. The forest seems alive, as if watching them. The wind carries the scent of blood and anxiety. Ling Tian's eyes are full of determination and thirst for power. A fighting goblin emerges from the shadows. The symbol on his body is a bloody tooth. Level 50. He is one of the strongest, race goblin. But not like the others. Profession, warrior of the highest level. Title, Monster Slayer. His body is covered with marks of blessing from the gods. His strength is a gift from above, his rage is a curse. Catching them alive is difficult. Poisons act differently. Special poisons must be found for the plan to work perfectly. The forbidden technique that was once used on me and Ephraim could prove to be a decisive tool in confronting enemies. The head of security reports that Ifreya is almost unconscious. She asks for peace, hoping to atone for the past with her death. The silence is broken by a cold touch and the warmth of an embrace. He keeps his word, but now it all depends on her. The choice, faith or service, rests on her shoulders. She hesitates, feeling an internal struggle. She is now his pet. Now is the moment to show your undoubted strength. This skill is known as Saint in a Cage. What lies behind this name is a mystery and hope at the same time. She prepares, feeling the weight and responsibility of the moment. The Saint in the Cage, a mystery and a test. Ifreya approached the cross. Light enveloped her body. Loader in the cage screamed for help. Now she was on the enemy's side. The question was, could the saint submit to the goblin? Ifreya has made a difficult decision, and now the path she has chosen leads to new challenges and dangers previously unknown to her. Loader goes mad in his cage, his laughter frightening even the goblins. In his head is the collapse of the goblin race, total destruction. He is sure that the Church of the Holy Order will finish them off. His words are full of poison, but devoid of hope. Ifreya was the final blow for him. He didn't expect to see her on the enemy's side. The goblin leader is grateful for his frankness. His reward is not deliverance at all. The goblin keeps Loader in constant tension. No reassurance will be allowed. One of the goblins assures him that he will take care of him. The leader nods. The conversation is over. Ifreya goes with him into the unknown without looking back, leaving behind everything that was dear and familiar to her. The time has come. The goal is clear. The Bloodtooth tribe must be destroyed. Meanwhile, in the Bloodtooth tribe, everything is ready. Time to attack the alien tribe. The goal is to destroy the enemy and take the elves. Joy seized the goblins. Everyone rejoiced. One of the guards reports, a guest asks to meet. The stranger is a low-level goblin, the Bloodtooth tribe chieftain thinks. He is not afraid. He looks straight into the eyes. This is Lentian. His mind disturbs the leader. He is not a mutant and thinks like a human. Lentian introduces himself as the leader of another tribe. His goal is to eliminate Chief Bloodtooth. To the rest, he indifferently offers a choice, either to serve him unconditionally or to accept death, which will inevitably overtake them. The chief knows that Lentian is holding the elves captive. The chief is interested. His genes are worthy of the elves. The new order is under the banner of the Lentians. It will change the power of this tribe. The Bloodtooth chieftain replies with disdain. Trash. He is not a threat to him. He grabs Ting Liang's face, ready to kill. The chieftain thinks he can easily capture the elves after the battle. The tribe demands the death of the stranger. Lentian understands. There will be no more words. He acts first. An instant blow. The chieftain's hand flies to the side. The chieftain screams in pain and rage. The tribe, enraged by betrayal, rushes into a furious battle, thirsting for revenge for their insulted brothers. But Ting Liang doesn't hesitate, and with one blow he cuts off the chieftain's arm. The goblins are shocked by his strength and speed. All thanks to progress and new skills, the army of Lentian comes out of the shadows. He gives the order to destroy the Bloodtooth tribe. The warriors begin to move, surrounding the enemy. The scream of many goblins shakes the forest. The battle goes according to plan. The resistance breaks. The leader watches, confidence never leaving him. Even if he dies, the enemy will fall with him. The end is near. Fear is in the air. Lentian calls Freya. She activates the holy cell. Light flares, engulfing the battlefield. The chieftain is trapped, surrounded by light. The magic is terrifying, too pure and powerful. The leader cannot bear it and, overcome with unbearable anger, screams, having fallen into a trap set by the enemy, from which there is no escape. Freya presses herself against Lentian's leg. He praises her. She did everything right. He promises a reward for her loyalty and strength. Freya thanks. Beaming with happiness, the owner praised her. The chieftain curses him, calling him a devil. But Lentian only smiles. He already feels the taste of victory. Soon he will become a hero of his kind. He is ready to take over the Bloodtooth tribe. The Tian Mao tribe is on the move. Ting Liang wipes his forehead. The pacification was worth the effort. The remnants of the Bloodtooth tribe have been absorbed. Loder is immersed in confusion, tormented by doubts. Who is he, this mysterious goblin who is capable of such actions? Lentian entrusts Yue with the care of the camp. He gives her Freya, orders her to obey Yue. The elf helps Lentian change his clothes. Lentian hints that today is an important meeting with a friend. Fighting knights is possible, but not the swordswoman. It takes a goblin hero to hold her off. But it will take time and an alliance. Time to enlist the aid of an ancient being. He walks toward the lair where the dragon sleeps. The wind is cold, but determination burns within him. Dragon Island is hundreds of miles from the nearest land. It's too far to get there on foot. The fastest way is to summon the mistress of the sky herself. Ting Liang prepares bait, the blood of fresh animals. It hides inside the carcass, hiding its breath. The smell is strong. Even animals will not smell it. An hour passes. A flame flares up in the sky. The dragon descends, her wings blocking the sun. A huge shadow falls on the ground. The grass is on fire. It grabs hold of the carcass and rises into the sky. Ting Liang freezes, holding himself inside. The altitude increases. The clouds remain below. The flight takes him to the edge of the horizon. He sees the outline of a rocky island. The dragon lands on top of an ancient volcano. A new stage of destiny begins. The dragon throws the carcass onto the stone floor. Lentian freezes inside, feeling the rumble. The warmth disappears, replaced by the dampness of the cave. The smell of blood hangs thick in the air, slowly seeping out from the torn flesh. The dragon's eyes are already watching him. In the depths of the lair, the flames flicker. The vaults tremble from the monster's breath. His armor is covered in sticky blood. The dragon's heavy breathing can be heard. She is majestic, covered in black scales. Her eyes are filled with ancient fury. Magic pulses around him. He raises his hands in reconciliation. The shadows of the bones cast dark silhouettes. A pause, tension breaking the air. He speaks. The dragoness does not interrupt. The cave becomes quieter. She waits. Lentian mentions the holy swordswoman. The flame in the dragoness's eyes flares. She remembers her power, pain, and humiliation. Anger turns to curiosity. He offers her a plan. Strikes from the shadows, cooperation. The dragoness thought, spreading her wings. Her claws dig into the stone, she thinks. She sees in him a simple goblin. There is no fear in his eyes, only calculation. Lentian suggests diversionary raids on the city. He avoids direct combat with the swordswoman. His words form a logical chain. She weighs the risks and possibilities. The answer to the proposal matures in silence. Slowly she nods, acknowledging the alliance. The goblin doesn't smile, but his eyes are shining. The first step has been taken. Chaos is near. The goblin weapons won't hurt her soldiers, so there's no danger. Let's make a deal. She didn't think a goblin could be that smart. She likes Lentian. She wants him to reward her. It turns out that the female dragon is ready to breed. He feels the desire to reward her for her loyalty and hard work by trying to help her discover her hidden talents. Loder awaits help from the knights. Staying here means breaking. We must flee. Goblins have surrounded us from all sides. The only way out is to go down the mountain. A dragon can be seen in the distance. The prisoner is afraid of being burned alive. Suddenly a dragon appears with Lentian on his back. The goblins greet him with joy. Rest and preparation before the next stage. The goblins greet their master. The city of Guangming is in an alarm state, and the warrior knights are gathering with determination to organize the rescue of civilians from disasters. The holy swordswoman prepares a rescue plan. The third-generation goblin development system is launched. After a series of attacks on the city and the Bloodtooth tribe, Long-awaited progress has finally been made. Ephraia is sent to training. In a month, the goblins' levels will increase. The main one to 50, Ephraia to 45. Options: continue killing monsters, grow more goblins, or speed up time. The decision has been made. Time has been accelerated. Transition to the end of the month. Experience has been gained, but overall progress is small. The hero, having reached level 50, received a significant increase in characteristics, becoming much stronger than his former self. Suddenly a disaster arises. Third-generation goblins are born dead. An error in development reduces the strength of the descendants. The higher the level, the more difficult it is to continue the family line. Ridicule and threats accompany failure. Loader is certain that attempts to breed strong goblins are futile. The story ends with Loader's warning not to play to death. It's too late to save the dead. We need to think carefully about the next step. Strengthening the goblins becomes a priority. Loader is given over to the goblins to be torn apart, screaming in horror as he realizes his helplessness and impending doom. Suddenly a dragon in heat appears, a possible chance to change the situation. The female dragon suddenly attacks Lentian with lust. A new achievement is unlocked. The hero's level increases sharply. Health, strength, and defense increase several times. Are all dragons so insatiable? The hero realizes his uniqueness and future possibilities. Dragon's blood is the key to further progress. The plan must be completed before moving on. The dragon's blood is given to the remaining goblins. The leader watches the events unfold, waiting for the developments. In the evening, around the fire, the goblins are delighted with the new strength acquired thanks to the dragon's blood. Strength has increased. All goblins have become more powerful. Lentian rests on the dragon's back. The legendary creature strengthens the tribe. Experience points are still low. Further training is required. The system opens a shop with new equipment. The leader of a goblin tribe cannot afford to stand idly by when his people are in mortal danger. The elemental hand crossbow is introduced, a compact ranged weapon that absorbs the elements of water, fire, wind, and thunder. Also a strength that can withstand 3 blows from a weapon or bare hands, spending 80 energy points. The selection of new skills and equipment is complete. Preparations for battle are in full swing. Lentian doesn't understand the new weapon. He wants someone to test it on themselves. Loader is a suitable victim. He is the first to see Lentian's power. Cries for help are heard in the magical forest. The dragon's mother often harasses the city, and the holy swordswoman seems to ignore the goblins, leaving the fight against them to others. Thanks to Loader, there was a great opportunity to use this chance, to easily and quickly get a victory. Suddenly the captain notices movement, a huge spider. Everyone dislikes these creatures, but this spider turned out to be unusual. He was shot with an arrow, but did not die. A goblin appeared. The expedition ended much faster than expected, and now all the credit will go to them. The boys began to put the plan into action. The archer took on cover, instilling confidence that everything would go smoothly. The commander praised him for his numerous victories over the goblins and assured that he could be completely relied upon. They reciprocated, reminding him that they too had killed many enemies, including one hero. Ultimately, they made a firm decision to put an end to their opponents once and for all and without return. At that moment, the knight rushed at the goblin with a cry, promising to kill him in seconds. A fierce battle began. The fight turned out to be incredibly tense. The blows flew with incredible force, but the defense worked, and this gave hope. The monster was indeed strong, but his solitude gave him an advantage. Suddenly, a goblin assassin appeared from behind, adding to the threat and complicating the situation. The commander ordered the area to be checked and prepared for defense. Soon crowds of goblins appeared, hungry for prey. In a fierce battle, the goblins achieve a decisive victory, breaking the enemy's resistance with their brutal fury. A fierce struggle for trophies began between them, with each trying to claim their rights. But the head of the tribe reminded that everything belonged to the tribe, and there was no point in starting a civil strife. In the end, the 2 strongest goblins proposed to settle the score in a fair fight to determine the true leader. The support of the brothers was strong. They promised to go shoulder to shoulder, fighting side by side, strengthening their positions. Laughter and fighting spirit filled the air. A real war lay ahead. He stared at the reflection of his sword, preparing himself for the battle ahead. He would be the next chieftain. First, it was necessary to drive the enemies back. The heroes returned, and not alone, but with people. The goblins are agitated, and Lentian is confident that he can control them. There was tension in the air. The trophies were already ready to be divided, but Lentian intervened, demanding that the prisoner be given to him. The goblin only agreed in exchange for the girl, and the tension grew. The chieftain challenged the mad goblin to a duel, giving him a chance to prove his strength and become the new leader. In response, there was laughter and a challenge. The previous head of the tribe was also ready to fight for his place. The goblin stood out from the rest in his loyalty and belief in his absolute power. The battle for leadership is about to begin. The son, seeking to prove his strength, challenges his father, thirsting for recognition and his own place among the warriors. The mad goblin, who had reached level 50, held the titles of warrior, son of an elf, possessor of God's blessing, and powerful demon. His strength had already reached an impressive 1,200 points. Despite this, his father doubted whether he would be able to withstand the test with him. The son was ready to kill the chieftain to show who was in charge and to seize the women as booty. Many goblins were ready to follow the new leader, but first they had to prove their strength. The heroes among the goblins were given an ultimatum: either stand by the leader or die. No one expected the leader to be such an inconspicuous guy, but luck was on the side of the captive. Once the battle broke out, he planned to escape, given the large difference in strength. While the old leader is alive, it is difficult to hide, but several goblins have already shown their willingness to follow the new leader. This goblin Lentian stood out from the rest. He chose the path of infinite power. No one understood how he had grown in power so quickly, but his abilities were truly impressive. His weapon was unfamiliar, too fast to simply dodge, and he had to parry the attacks. The goblin broke through the fireball with incredible strength. The chieftain acknowledged his power. In the midst of the battle, the goblin charged with a powerful blade, causing the enemy to be surprised. However, fate was not on his side. His opponent turned out to be endowed with a power capable of repelling such attacks. In the end, the goblin admitted defeat. The goblins, seeing Lentian's strength, fell to their knees, begging for mercy and swearing never to rise again. The leader shows mercy by promising not to kill those who remain loyal, even in difficult times. But he decided to keep some of them for himself forever, so that they would serve him forever. The goblins meekly agreed and swore allegiance to their leader. The goblins, gripped by terror, begged for mercy, panicked and despairing in the face of inexorable punishment. Their leader called on his subordinates to absorb the disobedient ones in order to strengthen themselves and become even more powerful. Cries of loyalty to the overlord were heard everywhere, as the goblins swore to serve forever. Loader, watching what was happening, realized that in front of him was not just a goblin, but a real monster. Before them stands a creature so powerful that even an entire empire is afraid to name its name. He regretted that he had not managed to show his full power, but he knew that it was useless to wait for salvation. Loader's hopes for the appearance of the holy swordswoman were high, but he knew that the outcome of this fight was a foregone conclusion. Meanwhile, the goblin lord mercilessly mocked the weakness of his opponents, calling them pathetic scum, and he confidently awaited the death of the swordswoman, knowing that then their final victory would come. Loader did not hide his arrogance, warning of the coming threat. The holy swordswoman, having dealt with the dragon, will definitely come. Lentian ironically noted that the dragon would not go into battle alone, and therefore felt calm, knowing that she was invincible with him. In turn, Loader took his threats with distrust, suspecting that his intentions were nothing more than a game. Finally, the humble wish of the prisoner was heard, to die next to Loader if this was his destiny. The lord, albeit reluctantly, agreed, showing that in this brutal war there was room for respect for worthy opponents. The holy swordswoman is alarmed by the noise and reports. The dragon did not break through, but the team returned from the battle with serious losses. The Knights of the Silver Blade are almost destroyed. Of many, only one remains, wounded and with severe injuries. It is said that in battle they encountered a goblin hero, a rare and dangerous enemy, which forced them to retreat. This goblin seemed to them to be a real abomination, a monster with whom one must be careful. The swordswoman realizes that the dragons are attacking more and more often, and the goblins can use this situation to launch a surprise attack. She realizes that she cannot cope alone and demands that reinforcements be sent to protect Guangming City. She intends to personally deal with the goblins and the Mother of Dragons to stop the threat once and for all. The holy swordswoman hesitates, remembering the fate of the previous team, wondering if they were still alive. However, her advisor urges her not to send new soldiers into battle, believing that their arrogance led to defeat. He calls himself Kasimov, the leader of the Death Knights, and takes responsibility for saving the people. The Holy Swordswoman is unsure if he can single-handedly deal with a threat that everyone considers invincible. But Kasimov confidently recalls how he once fought alone against 4 Titan warriors and survived. He declares that even the heroes of the past no longer pose a threat to him. Meanwhile, the Lentian system is activated and opens a panel. New opportunities and resources are ready for use. System activation complete. The current plot revolves around the confrontation with Kasimov, the Reaper of Death, who, following the instructions of the swordsman saint, suddenly attacked the tribe in the night, causing serious damage. Although Kasimov was eventually defeated and submitted, the loss was significant. The decision to take the initiative and meet him face-to-face resulted in a duel to the death, in which you managed to gain the upper hand but at the cost of your own life. The next stage requires gathering strength and building a strategy to restore and protect the tribe. A tense time is coming. Kasimov is already approaching, and his power is truly impressive. Legends of his battles with the Titans, mighty warriors from enemy lands, strike fear into all who hear his name. These Titans are capable of destroying even the strongest 5th-rank monsters, and Kasimov not only stood against them, he won. Everyone understands. He possesses special techniques and incredible power, capable of destroying everything in his path. Realizing that a direct battle could turn into a disaster, the most sensible thing to do is to send scouts. We need to find out as much as possible about his movements, the size of his troops, and his combat capabilities. This is the only way to prepare and develop a strategy that will give you a chance to survive and win. The situation becomes more tense and darker. The forest is empty, not a single monster, only traces of the previous squads that died in the clash. The air was thick with the pungent smell of blood, as if foreshadowing an impending and inevitable threat. Suddenly a scream is heard. It is Euphoria, one of the few survivors, calling for help in despair and fear. She tells that Loder died, and she herself escaped from one of the most brutal goblin tribes nearby. He does not stop and continues his journey forward, knowing that Euphoria is strong and will find her own way to salvation. Freya invites Kasimov to accompany her further, assuring her that he knows the way and can help avoid traps. He has a unique specialization, Desperate Knight, which gives her a bonus in combat when he is alone and without support. Each time you kill an enemy, their stats are increased by 30% and their overall strength increases by 20%. This makes him an especially dangerous fighter, durable, ruthless, and incredibly effective alone. Kasimov goes further. Perhaps this is a chance to find allies, or at least get valuable information for the upcoming battle. Loder is finally finished, and now the path to the pinnacle of power is open to those who dare to step. Self-confidence grows because the tribe is unlikely to be able to resist one strong opponent. But suddenly, an ambush. He falls from his horse to the ground. Freya is nearby, although it seemed that she had already left. A sudden explosion of divine light interrupts the moment, and actions become unpredictable. Euphoria delivers a powerful attack, as if following his master's orders, he demands his death. Grabbing her from behind, the enemy shows his cruelty, proving that he loves more than just killing monsters. He is able to control everything around him, even the living and the dead, subordinating both minds and bodies to his will. His words sound cold-blooded. He is not afraid to go alone against everyone, and his skills with weapons are truly impressive. A lone warrior wielding terrible weapons and powerful skills that instill fear in every enemy. This is the reality in which a new round of struggle for power and survival will begin. Who will be stronger in this confrontation will be decided by fate, and the answer will be heard in the next battle. Wow, the enemy's equipment is top-notch. A long sword made of black iron is already a terrifying artifact in itself. And the skills, Deadly Harvest, Speed Attack, Group Attack, Critical Strike, this is a truly deadly set. The situation is becoming truly dangerous for the tribe. It's ironic that it was a low-ranking goblin who dared to wield this blade, as if it were a challenge to fate. The enemy is certain that the master is behind the attack, perhaps some dark intervention or cunning plan. He contemptuously calls Ephraim a Porsche, but admits that she turned out to be a good little animal. He is disappointed with her abilities. He expected more, but reality showed the limits of her strength and determination. His aggression is obvious. "I'll tear you apart with my bare hands, and you've been waiting for a place in hell for a long time. It sounds like a challenge and a threat. It is clear that you are not facing just an enemy, but someone who is confident in his strength and is ready to do anything to win. Despite everything, the enemy was finally defeated. The head of the tribe returns from hunting. His strength is recognized by everyone. He won again without a single scratch. The tribe greets him as a god. Even the most daring goblins bow in respectful fear. Loader sees the body of a fallen warrior. He is horrified. Nothing can save him. Servants bring the meat of fallen enemies. The chosen ones eat first. The rest wait for the scraps. Corpses become a resource. Meat strengthens the body and blood is used for mysterious rituals. The tribe's geneticists select fierce goblins to create rare, twisted subspecies. Work is in full swing in the laboratory. The genes of knights are mixed with the bodies of goblins, creating ugly warriors. The cages with the captured knights are guarded. Their flesh will become the basis for future soldiers. The tribe leader studies the data on the Saint Swordswoman, identifying her weaknesses and the number of defenders. She prepares a plan of attack. It turned out that she had only 3 knights left, and all of them had already been captured by the tribe. But he would lose if he hesitated. The leader turns to the army and confidently says, "Tomorrow the destruction will begin." Deep in the dense forest, the knight came across, with alarm and horror, the gnawed remains of a human body left over from a past tragedy. The holy swordswoman looks at Kasimov's body. The knight's coat of arms is now bloody and powerless. A flash of realization. This is no accident. The dragons and goblins are working together. Guangming may be trapped. Immediate order. All combat units are to move out to find allies. The knights jumped on their horses, their hooves ringing loudly on the stones, breaking the deafening silence. One captain expresses doubt. The journey to Anda will take too long. Maybe he should go alone and the rest should return to protect the city. The witch cuts him off abruptly. It's a survival strategy. Even if they get ambushed, someone has to stay alive and carry the news. But the trouble is that now the knights are having a hard time holding back both the dragons and the goblins. Suddenly a voice. They can't move forward. Everyone freezes. In front of them is a collapsed bridge. The remains lie in the turbulent river. "Perhaps it is a trap," one of the warriors shouts, looking into the darkness of the forest. The commander is tense, but an ambush may be waiting on the other path. He frowns at the broken bridge. It's still the safest route. He orders to cut down the trees. Let's build a bridge right now. The blades of swords whistle. The trees fall to the ground one after another. By evening, a new bridge was built, but the gathering darkness seemed to envelop the forest, making the road even more dangerous. One by one, they step onto the fragile crossing, feeling the darkness gathering. The knight peers into the darkness. A silhouette appears in the sky. Wings, flames, a roar. It is a dragon. There's a goblin on the dragon's back, grinning ominously in the darkness. Are they really going to build a bridge right here? The detour route seemed too quiet. Everyone was afraid that the ambush was hiding right there, in the shadow of the trees. The knight is shocked. He broke the bridge on purpose. The dragon is already inhaling. Flames burst out of the dragon's mouth, rushing towards the bridge. The bridge immediately bursts into flames, engulfed in heat and smoke. The knights retreat in panic. The forest comes alive. Armed goblins jump out of the thicket. They must stand firm for Guangming's sake. One of the knights, Beth, steps forward. He will run and report. They will delay them at any cost. Goblins and knights clash in a bloody battle. The battle has begun. The holy swordswoman was expected as the last hope in an unequal fight. The goblin's behavior seemed deliberately restrained and calculating. The rider's release seemed too easy, like a trap. Suspicions grew. The enemy wanted to lure out the main defender. The loss of the city became almost inevitable with her departure. The knights rushed towards the target, trying to stop the enemy. Their blows lost their power near the new owner of the Black Blade. The knights realized that the enemy was holding the fallen Kasimov's blade. Lentian descended from the dragon, completing the trap exactly as planned. The goblins were ordered to finish off the squad before the saint arrived. Lentian went on the attack, breaking the ranks of the defenders. Fatigue, fear, and despair overtook the last fighters. Their blows died out as if they were crashing into impenetrable armor. Lentian gave the order to leave the field before the enemy arrived. The goblins retreated into the shadows, leaving no trace. Only bodies and fading groans remained on the battlefield. Under fire and darkness, a new stage of the siege began. The holy swordswoman arrived too late. The battlefield was covered in bones. Knights stood nearby, frozen with horror at the scale of the tragedy. The captain knelt before the fallen, swearing to avenge everyone who died with a sword in their hands until the end. The dragon's fire burned only part of the area. The goblins ate the rest. The bodies were mutilated. Only scraps remained of the people. The saint realized that the goblins and dragons were working together. One of the knights reported seeing a goblin riding a dragon. The suspicions were confirmed. This was their leader and the leader of the attack. The bridge was burned on his orders. The detachment was trapped. The saint gripped the hilt of her sword, anger and fury filling her. It all looked like a well-planned diversion. Suddenly, the scout screamed. The city of Guangming was under attack. The knights turned around, alarm spreading to everyone without exception. Despair mixed with determination to return and defend the city. The dragon's blows distracted them so that the enemy could penetrate into the very heart. The saint realized that this was not an accident but a strategy. There was no time to waste. The army hastily set out on its return journey. Black smoke was already rising above the horizon, heralding disaster. The swordswoman returned to Guangming but met only ashes and death. The ruins of the city were smoking. The streets were covered with the bodies of lifeless inhabitants. She knelt in silence, not believing her eyes. A child's cry came from the rubble, a boy sobbing over his father's body. The child screamed and pushed her away. The accusations were loud. People blamed her for the tragedy that had happened. The mother, who had lost her daughter, did not hold back her anger and tears. The crowd gathered around, pouring out their hatred on her. The words, "We don't need you," tore at her heart sharper than any blade. The swordswoman stood alone, unsure of how to answer them. A heavy silence fell over the ruined city. At this time, in the distance, the dragoness watched the result with satisfaction. Lentian completed the task perfectly. He did not receive a single blow and remained unharmed after the fight. Cunning and surprise proved stronger than swords and shields, and it all started with one meeting. Lentian became the turning point. Tianmao tribe. The leader returned from hunting. The goblins reported that the attack was successful. Several girls were captured and were granted mercy, with the promise of their lives being spared on condition of submission. They managed to take the cell out of the city along with the gold. Now they had resources and a chance to start all over again. Lentian received new powers. The holy swordswoman was feeling the pressure. The dragons were flying over the island more and more often, increasing the pressure. Lentian and the Mother of Dragons discussed further plans. It was decided to continue sending dragons to put pressure on the saint. In return, Lentian promised support. Mutual trust arose between them. Time to prepare for new challenges. The dragon took Lentian in a strong grip, pressing him to the ground. She demanded recognition and respect. Lentian laughed at her words, not believing in his own strength. The dragon saw in him the potential of a ruler and strength. She explained that dragons always follow the strongest, choosing those who are capable of changing the course of history itself. Her goal is to be close to the powerful in order to create strong offspring. Lentian thought about a new path full of power, deadly trials, and strength. Given characteristics: health plus 1,900, strength plus 600, defense plus 1,400. The dragon is sleeping peacefully. He doesn't want to wake her up. Lentian headed home. He senses possible difficulties if Mother Druvkanov wants to keep him close. The Mother of Dragons sees in him the potential for a new age of goblins, perhaps changing their future forever. Lentian allowed the elves to leave, considering their growth. He decided to trust the elves to choose to follow him. The Mother of Dragons recognized Lentian as a special goblin and decided to stay with him. Kasana also knelt before Lentian, expressing her devotion. They knew that the attacks on the elves would stop if they stayed. The elves decided to stay by his side, and the Mother of Dragons becoming loyal subordinates. Now they are no longer prisoners, but protected and loyal allies. The Holy Swordswoman has fallen. The threat of invasions has disappeared. The hero army begins to develop in earnest. Goblin is indignant at the small humans for him. Elves offer help in artificial breeding. One of the goblins suddenly died. Lentian is shocked by the unexpected death. The circumstances of what happened remain unclear. Everything remained calm until he lost his mind and died, leaving behind many mysteries. And suddenly the goblin was resurrected, reached level 50, and received the Mad Warrior class. His titles are impressive: revived, transformed, distorted, blessed by God. Thanks to the Mother of Dragons, He received powerful characteristics. The leader is glad that the goblin not only survived, but also became stronger. Now there is an opportunity to focus on raising a new generation ready for the coming storm. 3 months have passed. Guangming City. It has been a long time since the saint took her steps. There was a heated discussion in the tavern. The goblins were able to cope with the best warriors. The commander of the brave squad, His Highness Sittle, arrived unexpectedly, leaving everyone in awe. After training and breeding, 150 goblin heroes were born in 3 generations. The royal family has set a reward of 300 gold coins. Sittle is gathering a group of braves to destroy your tribe. Enemies are diamond and epic. You need to prepare carefully. Score 10 points, reward, health multiplied by 10. A diamond-ranked traveler is a mentor to other goblins. An epic-ranked traveler is stronger than the sword saint. A new challenge is coming. The elf reported that resources in the forest are low, and a new generation of goblins has grown up. The Iron People's base is nearby. You can get equipment there. Training is lagging behind due to lack of resources. The situation in Guangming is tense. It's time to move. The new house must be well protected. Lentian ordered to immediately prepare for the move. The move surprised the elves, but they obeyed. A waterfall, rocky mountains, a cave, the perfect lair. Lentian ordered to fortify the cave so that the children would grow up in safety. The goblins began clearing and fortifying. This place became a new home. The celebration took place with an oath of complete loyalty to the leader. The tribe has been relocated. It's time to check Guangming City. The system requires you to see the situation in person before making a plan. The bar is discussing Sithel, who usually only kills high-level monsters. He decided to fight the goblins for the sake of his brother Loader, who died in battle, and for the promised reward from the capital. They say goblins are worth 1,000 gold. Wizard Gru, leader of the diamond-level Grey Hats, has appeared. He came for the money and is ready to kill indiscriminately. They say that this time the cold-blooded Lucilina is also involved. The bar suddenly became quiet and silent. Everyone tried not to make noise, so as not to attract his gaze and possible anger. The wandering brave man came not for the goblins, but to slay the dragon and become an epic adventurer. Goblins should not be underestimated. Their mutations make them dangerous. The seasoned warrior has lived for 100 years and knows that goblins are a threat to all epic peoples. Money is the only reason many came here, as the goblins have already taken the lives of many allies. They cannot be exterminated for thousands of years. Caution is the main thing. The old man is confident that he and His Highness will cope with the task and is ready to give the rewards after the victory. The team decides to go through the forest. This will allow them to act decisively and catch the enemy off guard. The young man is too cautious and wants to explore the area first. Among them is a mysterious goblin slayer who hides his identity. His voice sounded false, but in his presence no one doubted that he was truly strong. He never suffered any serious injuries and killed over 1,000 goblins single-handedly. Goblin Slayer refused to join in and demanded to clear the way. His impudence drew warnings of consequences. Despite his strength, his behavior irritated those around him. Everyone watched him with interest, not knowing what to expect. His actions could change the entire outcome of the battle. Lentian watched what was happening from the top of the mountain, using piercing vision that could pierce space and darkness. He saw a knight, a level 65 Goblin Slayer, a man without a class, a hidden personality with the title of Alcohol-Carrying Brother. Its characteristics varied from 1,000 to 3,000. The system did not offer solutions. On the battlefield was Sithel himself, a horseman of royal blood with a fighting strength equal to 1,300. And Gru is a great mage with a power of 1,400. Despite their high diamond rank, no problems were expected. Particular attention had to be paid to the Goblin Slayer. His presence could change everything in an instant. In the former settlement of the Tianmao tribe, the defenders noticed something strange. Such a large settlement should have been discovered long ago. Along the way, they found many traces of battles, which confirmed that the tribe was nearby. The old man noticed strange hair and sniffed it. It was elf hair, which gave rise to alarming suspicions. Suspicions arose that the elves might have helped the goblins escape, which seemed impossible. A special butterfly, sensitive to the scent of elves, pointed the way. Perhaps with its help it will be possible to find the goblins. The butterfly seems to be moving towards the river, raising the question of whether the goblins could have crossed it. The old man suggested simply waiting for the Goblin Slayer to finish the job. All this seemed unnecessary, because one of the goblins was noticed in the distance. The threat to him was real and close. They gave chase and Lentien was ready. The trap with bait worked perfectly. The knight was surprised and noted with slight mockery that the place around was very beautiful. The laughter seemed strange. The pursuer turned out to be a knight, and it turned out that it was a girl. She suddenly went into the water to swim, which looked extremely strange in such a dangerous and tense situation. The Goblin Slayer was a girl, but she was clearly not of the human race, and her strength stood out. She seemed to be deliberately drawing attention, as if trying to seduce. Perhaps she had noticed the ambush. The dragon soared into the sky, but Lentien decided not to rush. First, he needed to deal with the rest of the enemies. The girl looked up, as if challenging him with her gaze, and beckoned him towards her, creating a feeling of dangerous temptation. The prince stopped and warned of possible encirclement. Flaming arrows rained down around. The magician activated the protection and released a powerful stream of energy from the ball. Even he felt the impact. The old man was strong, but the battle continued. The goblins went on the offensive, demonstrating the skills of true heroes. They used the fireball technique, surrounded by a protective field, which made them virtually invulnerable. One of the goblins survived the devastating attack. Despite efforts, it was not possible to completely destroy it. Enemies surrounded them on all sides, and it was surprising to see the goblins wearing modern equipment. Siddle was given the command to take a key role in the battle, and the mage relied on him completely. The battle continued, and the mage used different types of magic: ice shards, sand grips, and punitive rains. The knight responded to the request for help and entered the battle. The prince urged not to be afraid and to hold on. The priesthood activated the highest-tier magic, the Holy Light, calling upon the maximum power to eradicate the evil souls. The mage announced that he would call forth a snowstorm to help surround and protect the wounded, restoring their strength. The main goal remained unchanged: to completely and irrevocably destroy all enemies without regret or mercy. The diamond-rank travelers turned out to be much more cunning and organized than expected. If they had reached the other goblin tribes, they simply would not have been able to resist. But unfortunately for them, the enemies came specifically to them. The mutant rushed into battle, causing the girl in the water to laugh maliciously and be delighted by the strength of the goblins. The mighty mage was captured by the ugly mutant, and the young prince was suffocating with fear, unable to move. The mage begged Sithla for help, screaming desperately, and the prince panicked. These goblins seemed like real demons. The prince rushed to the attack, shouting that the goblins were even using elven arrows, an unexpected and dangerous weapon. He called out to the Goblin Slayer for help when the goblins attacked him, and he came to his rescue. The prince's gratitude sounded sincere, but the knight warned him to stay away from him. There was a sense of unease in the air. This goblin tribe was unusual and dangerous, and their master was somewhere nearby. The knight noted with a grin that the more goblins, the better for him. The goblin held the mage tightly, and Lentien watched the situation closely, trying to understand what was happening. The knight recognized the goblin as their leader, although he noted sarcastically that it was difficult to guess from his appearance. The goblins raised a cry and rushed to attack, but the knight confidently scattered them like balloons. Leitan was amazed by the skills of the girl, whose rank was considered A, and suspected that she possessed magic. During the battle, the girl went into a ferocious state, and the goblins began to mutate, turning into dangerous creatures. The knight struck a powerful blow, but suddenly his body seemed to stick, which greatly surprised the fighter. He was covered in goblin blood. Lentien realized that they would not be able to withstand a direct confrontation, and gave the order to retreat. Form a circle and fight from a distance to wear down the enemy. He thought that the girl had good skills and could be useful for further breeding. The knight, realizing that the goblin was controlling the dragons, was determined not to lose this battle and prepared for the next move. The knight continuously cut down the advancing goblins. Their attacks did not stop, but she fought tirelessly. Having thrust her sword into the ground, she took a moment to rest, and Lentien mentally calculated how much time she could endure. Taking off her helmet, she revealed herself in her beauty, causing admiration among the goblins, many of whom were enchanted by her. Suddenly, she plunged her hand into the mage's body, snatching his heart, and began to devour it greedily. Lentian anxiously warned his allies to keep a close eye on her and not let their guard down. The knight did not hesitate and continued to attack the goblins, killing them one by one. When one goblin, enraged, rushed at her, she quickly plunged her sword into his heart, and he flew away, struck by her power. Everyone around her was wondering who she was, because even against the goblin's absorption ability, she remained invincible. Lentian understood that in this difficult situation, it was necessary to find ways to reduce the number of victims. Lentian gave the order for the goblins to retreat, and Ifreya was to follow him. The knight noted his intelligence and cunning. She had not met such a smart goblin for a long time. She tried to convince him to come to her, promising to save the lives of the others, but Lentian did not believe her. In response to doubts, the knight took off her armor and weapons, showing that she was ready for an open conversation. Lentian, lost in thought, jumped off the dragon. She admitted that he had exceeded her expectations. Questions about whether previous promises would be fulfilled began to arise on their own. But time passed, and there was no action. But the knight assured that she would keep her word if Lentian satisfied her. She was eager to hunt and kill strong goblins. A difficult game began between them, where the stakes were high and trust was worth its weight in gold. Despite his goblin appearance, Lentian possessed the wisdom of a lord, which made her especially excited. He felt cheated, realizing that he had fallen for her tricks, and turned around in irritation. The goblins nearby, under her control, turned away, not daring to look at what was happening. She laughed and hugged him from behind, assuring him that she would not kill him, but wanted to enjoy his presence and see what kind of creature he would become. Then she climbed on top of him and kissed him, as if asking if it was all true. The prince hid in the thick bushes, trying not to make any noise, and anxiously watched what was happening on the battlefield. His surprise knew no bounds. The goblin slayer turned out to be a girl, and now she was also next to a goblin. Suddenly a goblin appeared from behind. The prince turned around too late, and in horror he let out a desperate, piercing cry. The goblins fussily collected the bodies of the dead, rejoicing in the abundant booty, anticipating a feast after the brutal slaughter. Lentian warned of the risks if someone followed him into the goblin lair. The girl replied that everything depended on the strength of the one who wanted to follow. He demanded that she tell him who she was and what power she had, so that he could understand how she could control his subordinates. Then she confessed that she was a descendant of the Goblin King, and her future fate depended on the truth of her words. The goblin leader was amazed by the girl's story and was very surprised by this development of events. She explained that being a descendant of the Goblin King, she actually looks human due to her human mother. She was raised by goblins who abused her mother, and survived despite the difficulties of goblin reproduction. About 10 years ago, armed with a knife, she began to exterminate goblins, drinking their blood and becoming the ruler of the goblins. She subdued all the goblins in the dungeon and explained that the power of royal blood allowed her to control them. She absorbed the blood into her weapon. The touch of the blade kills the goblin, and if there is no resistance, she can take control of it. She stated that she was a goblin slayer and hated them. For him, it was not just a job, but fun. He noted that she was born specifically to contain and destroy goblins. If she became his enemy, it would be a big problem. He invited her to join him, noticing their similarities. The girl thought, noticing that Lentian was afraid of her and planned to take control of him, but realized that this would not be necessary. The knight decided to return to the city to distract attention, and declared that Lentian was now hers and that she would protect what was hers. Lentian is a level 55 goblin with no class, the title of blasphemer, the creator of new species and the future ruler. He noted that the girl gave him a lot of points, and this was worthy of the descendant of the Goblin King. Meanwhile, Brother Loder, although looking ill, was alive, but his reputation had suffered greatly. With a sarcastic smile, the prince remarked to his brother that even the saint had not come to save him, hinting at his weakness. Loder responded by calling attention to the boiling pot that had been prepared for him. The next moment the goblin lifted the prince up, and he, trying to save himself, offered many girls in exchange for freedom. Loder, nicknamed Dog by his brother, suddenly intervened and declared that if the prince was released, he would help make the goblins stronger. The prince, apologizing for his words, tried to apologize, but Lentian was not one to easily accept conditions. Lentian suggested cutting off the prince's leg and letting him go. He would bring news that Loder was alive. Then the prince's family will send reinforcements that can be destroyed and absorbed. The prince was stunned by the sudden turn of events, and Loder, filled with rage, vowed to kill all enemies. However, the elf warned that if the prince was released, the location of the goblins would be revealed. Lentian remained calm, confidently looking into the distance. He did not doubt his decisions. A tavern on the other side of town was in an uproar. One of the patrons was shouting as if foreboding trouble. The bartender tried to calm the panic but heard the name of Citel. According to an eyewitness, he returned to the city without a leg, barely alive. A moment later, alarm swept through the hall. No one could believe that two groups of fighters had failed and only one had survived. A tense silence fell over the room. Conversations died down. Everyone felt like a storm was about to break. At that moment, the doors of the tavern swung open and a knight walked in. All eyes turned to her. Those present began to whisper, recalling her participation in the battle. When asked about the goblins, she briefly replied that she had destroyed them all, despite their diversity and quantity. The tavern guests froze in surprise. Then came cries of admiration. Her action seemed impossible. Victory was won. But the enemy turned out to be much stronger than everyone expected. A scream echoed throughout the tavern as shadows, dozens of bats, rushed into the building. People recoiled in fear. Some fell from the bench, some grabbed weapons. Their appearance looked too unusual, as if it were a carefully planned performance. It has not yet become clear. These are mercenary killers who use magical transformations to move. One of them, turning to the Goblin Slayer, suggested that if there really were that many goblins, then their lair had been found. The Goblin Slayer replied that he had not found the lair, but had simply destroyed those he had met along the way. He added in passing that his companion would probably cope with the rest. The mercenaries, in the guise of bats, expressed their willingness to take on the task of finding the lair and counted on cooperation. However, the knight refused. She did not like to act at night and was especially not used to working in a team. Hearing this, one of the mercenaries noted with a grin that if that was the case, the entire reward would go to them. The alliance did not take place. Ahead, there will be not only fights with goblins, but also a struggle for influence and rewards. The killer bats methodically combed the dark forest, lit only by the dim light of the moon. One of the scouts reported to the captain that there was no sense of a large army presence in the area. However, the smell of blood suddenly stopped at the entrance to the cave, as if it had been masked by someone. The team cautiously entered. No one was surprised to see a cave. For a goblin lair, it was quite logical. Some began to doubt. The number of opponents seemed insignificant. Only one mutant and a few ordinary goblins. However, according to the Goblin Slayer's estimates, the lair belonged to the average, but with numerous and dangerous representatives. The bats charged, intending to drain the blood of all the goblins inside. However, everything did not go according to plan. Suddenly, flames burst out over their heads. Streams of fire rained down on them from the ceiling of the cave, engulfing the bodies of the attackers. The bats fell, screaming in pain, engulfed in living fire. The air was filled with the smell of burning flesh. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. Right in the goblin lair was a holy nun, surrounded by holy flames. Her presence was impossible, unbelievable, but she was there, and that changed everything. Torches flared along the stone walls of the cave, filling the space with an ominous orange light and adding to the sense of danger. In the semi-darkness, the silhouettes of goblins began to emerge. Dozens, hundreds of eyes lit up like those of predators in the dark. The killer bats realized they were trapped. There was no way back, and the only way forward was death. Lentian came out from among the goblins. His voice sounded cold and mocking. He pointed at the aliens as if they were prey that had naively crawled into the jaws of a monster. Vampires, he called them. His words about the feast and courage were more of a sentence than a reproach. The bats felt the weight of their own mistake. Realizing that they had been discovered, they assumed their true form. Female figures with demonic beauty stepped forward. Their bodies exuded coldness and deadly grace. One of them is Lilith, level 61, race vampire. Without class, but with titles that inspire fear. The Immortal Countess, the Curse of the Gods. Lentian immediately assessed the threat. Their level, strength, aura, everything indicated that the fight would be difficult. But thanks to the system that warned him in advance about a possible visit from mercenary killers, he managed to prepare. His calmness was not accidental or ostentatious. He was fully prepared for the coming battle, and everyone knew it. The goblins glowed with a golden light, as if a divine flame had flared up within each of them. The vampires, accustomed to the darkness, began to writhe in pain, their bodies unable to withstand the holiness that spilled throughout the cave. Some of them fell to their knees, burning in the light that was like poison to them. Len Tian, watching what was happening, he realized the advantage was on his side. He was not going to waste his strength on a senseless slaughter. He raised his hand, stopping his subordinates. The goblins stopped their advance, frozen like statues, but not extinguishing their light. He knew that the enemy, although mortally dangerous, still came not out of a thirst for revenge, but for profit. They also need a reward. But the question was, why do immortals who feed on blood need money at all? The answer was obvious. The Holy Church and the Holy Swordswoman had established a ban on bloody hunts. Vampires now had to buy blood legally to survive. Money became the key to their existence. He saw an opportunity in this. If he could form an alliance, he would have the strongest allies. Moreover, interaction with vampires could open up new horizons for the development of the goblin race. The possibility of strengthening himself through the adaptation of other people's abilities had already flashed through his thoughts. Lentian stepped forward and offered them cooperation. The goblins extinguished the light, and darkness reigned in the cave. Their leader, Lilith, understood that goblin blood would not satisfy them. Lentian remained calm. He knew that these were not mindless predators, but intelligent and calculating creatures. He offered them something different, an alternative to senseless violence. There were legends about creatures that replaced the thirst for blood with other forms of energy saturation, succubi. Everything happened through rituals, special feelings, deep connections, and even physical contact between the participants. Lentian's words caused surprise. The vampires looked at each other. A shadow of interest appeared in their eyes. The silence dragged on, but it no longer felt threatening. Slowly and carefully, the outline of a possible alliance began to form in the air. There were plenty of ghoul creatures with similar power in these lands. If the union succeeds, the vampires will no longer have to suffer from constant thirst. Lentian's idea seemed crazy, but at the same time it evoked a strange feeling of hope. One of the girls reminded them that they had the title of Countess, and their count was still under seal. However, the response was one of sacrifice. Too many of their sisters had been destroyed over the past centuries. The hope that the suffering might end motivated them to act. They closed their eyes, immersing themselves in the sensation of a new source of power. The reaction was unexpected. The bodies were filled with an energy that resembled that which only fresh blood had previously given. It was something different but effective. The excitement grew and more vampires expressed their willingness to try. Leah rushed to help, trying to stabilize the situation. The elf approached Lentian and noticed that he could barely stand on his feet. The vampire's greed had almost brought him to exhaustion. She noted with concern that hunger had driven these creatures almost insane. The vampires agreed to the goblin's offer and asked what they wanted in return. He noted that the cave is dark all year round, making it an ideal habitat for vampires. In return, they were only required to guard the cave from outsiders. The vampire approved the terms and soon left. In Guangming, contact with the mercenaries was lost, and now the travelers were sure that the attempt had failed again. The tavern was filled with cries of cowards and losers, blaming the diamond-ranked travelers for the defeat. The atmosphere was tense and filled with irritation. At this time, the Holy Swordswoman entered the tavern. She was reminded with a warm smile how good it was that she had recovered from the events that almost cost her life. A few minutes later, the plan of action was being discussed. The Holy Swordswoman was going to go to the dragon's lair alone, and the rest of the knights had to focus on fighting the goblins. Despite the fact that only people of ordinary rank were left at their disposal, there was confidence that they would be able to cope. One of the fighters, diamond-rank marksman Allison, expressed his desire to help the Holy Swordswoman in her mission. The swordswoman entrusted him with the responsibility of the operation against the goblins, distributing the duties among the squad. The mysterious island of dragons could only be reached by sea, only by ship and in good weather. Having heard about the ability to control objects of the traveler, she offered to help him, which was perceived as a great honor. He mentally anticipated the reward, the epic rank of traveler that would be in his pocket. The dragons circled high above the island, guarding the sky, and the mother of dragons sat by the nest, carefully guarding the egg. She was surprised by what was happening and did not expect the swordswoman to recover so quickly. Hugging the egg, the mother of dragons remembered her father, an unusual goblin. It was time to settle the issue with the swordswoman once and for all. She turned into a dragon. Meanwhile, the swordswoman chopped several dragons into pieces. She turned her attention to the mother of the amethyst dragons and asked how much longer she would bother them by attacking from ambush. The mother of dragons objected that she would not tolerate orders and reminded her of the swordswoman's attempts to destroy her people. For this, she was going to kill the swordswoman. A furious fight broke out, in which the dragon proved too strong. The guard, frightened, was about to retreat, but the swordswoman grabbed him and dragged him back into battle, demanding that he not get in her way. Purple pieces of rock flew out of the dragon's mouth, almost injuring the guard, who recoiled in fear. The swordswoman used her absolute strength skill and quickly went on the attack, striking straight at the dragon's face. An explosion of iron storm thundered among the rocks, shaking the air, leaving a trail of fire and destruction in its wake. At that moment, the egg was broken and a baby dragon hatched from it, which immediately soared into the sky. The swordswoman fought the purple dragon, aiming for its head, but missed, only hitting its eye. The enraged dragoness fought back desperately, refusing to give in even as her strength began to fail her. At this time, the green dragon flew in to help the mother. She protected the child, urging him to run to a safe place. The swordswoman cut off her head. She died. The little dragon flew away, sobbing. The guard tried to attack, but was himself damaged by a green flame attack. The flames burned his face fiercely, and he quickly stepped aside, trying to wash away the burns with a healing potion. The swordswoman decided to spare the fugitive and focus on the main threat, the goblin that was looming over the city of Guangming. She was determined to kill him with her own hands. The swordsman saint noticed that her magic had weakened due to the dragons. The little dragon cried bitterly over his mother's body, desperately trying to save her. He tried to carry her away, but his strength was leaving him, and eventually he made the difficult decision to absorb his mother in order to preserve her power. Having reached the dragon's lair with his mother's head in his hands, the dragonette was immediately attacked by another dragon. The ruler was introduced to him. The red dragon recognized the head as Phobos, the fire mother of dragons, and a tense conversation ensued. The lord of the demon's lair listened with suspicion to the story of the dragon's origin. He noted traces of divine power on Phobos's body, indicating the intervention of a woman, the sword's saint. The dragons looked down on the fact that the child was half goblin, considering it a disgrace to their race. Then one of the dragons asked permission to destroy the dragonette, calling him a runt. The red dragon explained that the dragonette was a descendant of the true ancient dragon lord, and that there were no more dragons like him left. This heritage is both draconic and goblin, which makes it difficult to accept. To save his mother, the child must survive the battle with the dragon standing next to him. The dragon opened his mouth and the green dragon flew right into it. The dragon asked for help. He was about to explode. The red dragon emphasized that this was the master's decision. The child must save himself. There was no point in waiting for help. Suddenly, he burst out of the mouth with lightning speed, soaring into the sky. He had survived and passed the test. He had won. Then the red dragon gave instructions. In order for the mother to be resurrected, it was necessary to take the head of Phobos. And combining it with the roots of a dead tree to create a tree dragon is the only thing that can help in the revival of the mother. Meanwhile, Lentian activated the system to speed up the process of developing and strengthening his powers. Virtual indicators began to grow rapidly, filling him with energy and opening up new opportunities to achieve goals. The outcome of the battle was successful thanks to the skillful use of the features of the cave landscape. After consuming over 100 corpses, the goblins finally reached level 50 and completed their evolution. First up was the furious goblin, Devour and Rage. The more it eats, the more health it gains, becoming a veritable living fortress. The second to evolve is the Goblin Giant. Its skill is Hammer Frenzy, turning it into a destructive force on the battlefield. The third was the Dark Goblin. His unique skill is Blade Master, making him a deadly and swift killer. These three evolved warriors have now become the mainstay of the Goblin clan, ready for new battles and conquests. The vampire who drank a lot of blood admitted that she sent her spies to monitor the swordswoman saint. She learned that after the death of hundreds of travelers, the swordswoman immediately left Guangming. A call for legendary hunters is currently being prepared to deal with Lentian. A serious danger awaits him. After all, the holy swordswoman's partners may be former elite fighters of her squad. Lentian was going to get some fresh air in the city. The swordswoman left its borders in time. Suddenly, a goblin ran up to him and quickly informed him of the imminent approach of a squad of his fellows, causing alarm and tension. They headed straight for the cave, determined to attack and seize enemy territory. There were no tribes within a radius of 50 kilometers, and it was unclear whether the goblins belonged specifically to the owners of the cave. The goblins climbed up the sheer cliff, clinging to ledges, overcoming fatigue and pain for the sake of their goal. Among them stood out a wild goblin with no class, but with the title of Beastmaster. Having received the power of the beast lords and the blessing of the glorified god, possessing the strength of a hero, Lentian realized that he had never encountered such strong goblins before, and what tribe they were from. His strength was impressive, and he could only belong to the ranks of commanders. The blessing of God and the strength of a hero proved it. Lentian gave the order to prepare for battle. First, it is necessary to eliminate the escort detachment. The warriors with the hero do not yield to him. The detachment had already reached the river. The flow was strong, but they did not feel tired. The air was filled with the heavy smell of blood. One of the goblins noted with surprise the absence of the usual smell that usually accompanied such places, but the chief assumed that there was a lot of food stored in the cave. A good snack was waiting for them soon. The warriors began to relax, expecting a quick respite. The attack came suddenly. Panic set in, the squad was caught off guard. No one expected an attack. The goblins rushed to defend the chief. They were ready to give a worthy rebuff to the attackers. But when confronted with a mutated enemy, they wavered. The warriors began to retreat, unable to withstand the onslaught. The battle was unequal. Their leader was beside himself with rage at the cowardly traitors who had abandoned him. The opponents began to pursue the frightened night guests. More and more retreating apostates were pierced through. One of the goblins, having assessed the situation, tried to escape in order to convey information that their lair had been captured. Crossbow arrows followed him, and the space was filled with the ringing of metal and the groans of the wounded. The situation was becoming critical. They had no chance. Their leader had been captured. The goblins were dead. The wild goblin was seriously wounded, and his body was gradually weakening under the destructive effects of the poison that had penetrated it. He looked at Lentian with hatred. He was just a low-ranking goblin. Looking at his fallen brothers, he considered them useless. After that, consciousness left him. Now Lentian had to reveal their true nature and determine where exactly they came from to these parts. Lentian managed to catch the enemy and chain him to the wall, ignoring the threats. He swore that no amount of torment would make him bow to the goblin. He would not answer a single question. However, after a short time, everything changed. The enemy was angry, tried to intimidate, but soon pride was replaced by fear. Several minutes of interrogation were unbearable for the wild goblin. Lentian used the entire range of weapons. He couldn't stand it any longer and gave in, promising to tell everything he knew. He was ready to do everything to stop this torment. Lentian was happy with his superiority. He was finally able to loosen his tongue. Under torture, he confessed his origins, the tribe of the beast lords of the forest which lives in the west. Their master once owned this cave and sent him back to retrieve some important things. The information was useful, but he didn't expect that the territory was already occupied by others. Their chief, the leader of the goblins, will soon become the hegemon. It became clear to Lentian, this was about treasure. It had to be found. Now everything had changed. The new government had already taken root. Lentian interrogated the wild goblin to the end, extracting everything that could be useful. Treasure found. 7th rank corpse ring. Crafted by the head of the corpse Connell upon activation, it seals the enemy's soul. Lentian did not expect such treasures to exist. Now this ring belongs to him. The prisoner asked to let him go. The ring requires the victim's blood to activate. Lentian struck the prisoner and blood flowed. Having received all the necessary information, Lentian waited for the moment to use the ring on his captive. He promised freedom, and he did not break his promise. He let go of the flesh, but took the soul. The eyes of the skull on the ring glowed green. The ring was activated. Calling upon the power of the ring, he absorbed the soul of a wild goblin, increasing his own power. The prisoner's eyes radiated fear and despair. He refused to believe that what was happening around him was reality. A green haze enveloped the entire space, penetrating the air and the ground, leaving behind a feeling of heavy corruption. The increase was small, only 200 units, but he got the idea. The souls of strong enemies can give much more. Which means it's only just beginning. If the goblins of the Beast Lord tribe are really that strong, then new souls will become the next step of his power. Only a lifeless, exhausted body remains from the monster. Perhaps, with a skillful approach, his tribe could be used against humans, if he could play on their fears and interests. The Beastmaster tribe will not remain idle if they learn that one of their warriors has disappeared and an artifact has fallen into the wrong hands. He looked at the ring, feeling the faint pulsation of the soul inside. The question was in mechanics, how to control the sealed spirit. The knight was surprised how he defeated such a monster. One of the tribe of beast lords belonging to the Empire of Lions. There was a knight standing nearby, a girl. She knew about the tribe of the beast lords. Her surprise was sincere. Even she did not poke her nose into them. This tribe is not just strong, it lives near the big tomb. There are world-level 12 creatures there. These creatures could be absorbing their power. This is what Lentian thought at the most opportune moment. With the western region shrouded in darkness and fear, in her opinion, contact with such monsters should be avoided. In front of him is one of these creatures. Lentian thought about it, but soon an idea came to him. If the soul is alive in the ring, it can be used. He asked the night girl to use her to implant his soul back into his body, to temporarily recreate his personality, to give him an order. The goal was simple: send the puppet back to the tribe with a false report. According to legend, the ring was stolen, but not by them. Lentian mentioned that the ring was allegedly stolen by royal aristocrats. The empires of Lions, the Stirred and Philemon clans. Everything went according to plan. He confessed he let Sittel go on purpose. He did not spare him. He used him. He prepared a trap into which the influential people of this world would sooner or later fall. And when that happens, their feud will flare up again, and each side will look for someone to blame. They both understood a simple truth. In the struggle of the Titans, only the one who remains in the shadows survives, while others are tearing each other's throats out. Count Philemon was consumed with rage. The shame brought upon his family by the defeat by the Goblins tore at his pride. His son, trembling before him, tried to explain that the enemy was not just savages, but an organized, intelligent, and strong force. Even the elite Grey Hats were wiped out, and Loder, one of the strongest fighters, barely escaped and is in captivity. But the explanations could not quell the father's anger. Losing meant ridicule from other houses, undermining his authority, and losing his influence. The atmosphere in the hall became tense. How dare his son say such a thing? The heirs of two great families lost to some goblins. The son begged for forgiveness, repenting of his shame and actions that almost led to the death of the entire family. Images of goblins floated through his mind, their hideous faces and wild cries still instilling genuine terror. Count Philemon openly considered his own son pathetic and unworthy, not hiding his contempt for him. Against this backdrop, a member of the Stirred clan intervened. His appearance added to the tension, but instead of hostility, he proposed an alliance. The Count listened to him with suspicion. He proposed uniting the families to wash away the shame. Direct action against enemies was strictly prohibited. The king issued a decree limiting any aggression, according to which the high nobility could not form armies without permission. The right to take revenge has already been transferred to the holy swordswoman. However, the allies' proposal was different. He proposed to act differently. The king would doubt his uselessness. In order for the king to give the go-ahead, the aristocrats need to report on the worsening situation with the goblins. Then the king will allow the aristocracy to allocate troops and the goblins will come to an end. The situation was becoming increasingly tense. Behind the aristocracy's back, a subtle game was being played out, in which everyone was pursuing their own goal. Some tried to gain the king's trust, others tried to discredit their competitors, and someone will take advantage of the chaos for their own benefit. The decision has been made. In conversations between nobles, threats, omissions, and hints about true goals emerged under the guise of concern for the kingdom. A few days later, panic reigned in the goblin dungeons. Rumbling sounds could be heard. The homemade pistol fired, hitting the target. Lentian tried out the new weapon. The goblins covered their ears from the thunder, but at the same time they looked at their leader with admiration. Lentian, not hiding his satisfaction, assessed the effectiveness of the weapon. There was little gunpowder, but the principle itself worked. The elf, having seen everything with her own eyes, began to beg to be taught how to shoot. Others followed her. Their bodies merged in a tight embrace, as if trying to stay together forever in the midst of the surrounding chaos. It soon became known that well-armed troops had gathered in Guangming. Spies reported that other goblin tribes were among the attackers. The Beast Lord tribe was approaching. Lentian grinned, sensing the approach of a grand battle that could change the fate of the entire world. Meanwhile, in the Empire of Lions itself, at the foot of a huge grave, something alarming and gloomy was beginning. One of the goblins came running in panic. The ring, the very one, ancient and dangerous, had fallen into the hands of the people. He barely survived to deliver the news. The Beast Lord tribe's leader went berserk. He couldn't accept the loss of the relic. His eyes burned with hatred. The war was becoming personal. He felt a strong hatred towards them, and firmly ordered that the ring be returned at any cost, regardless of the consequences. In Guangming, the residence of Count Philemon Stuart, the atmosphere was tense. The Holy Swordswoman was temporarily absent due to important matters, and this caused unrest among the guards and nobles. Count Philemon and Stuart arrived at the residence with his army. The people of Guangming greeted them obediently. The dragon's servant, a brave warrior who fought alongside the Saint Swordswoman, was ignored by the count. This caused outrage. The count did not recognize him at first, but later calmly explained the nature of his visit and the true purpose of his arrival in the city. Meanwhile, the alarming news of the goblins' advance spread quickly, causing fear in everyone. And suddenly, without warning, the attack began. The goblins fell upon the city with the fury and savagery of predators. There were surprisingly few soldiers at the city gates, and the question of how the goblins had managed to get into the city hung in the air unanswered. The troops of the Lion Empire were preparing to show their power and stop the enemy at any cost. A battle was brewing that would decide the fate of Guangming and its inhabitants for many generations to come. Using magic and swords, people fought together against the bloodthirsty creatures. Lentian watched from above, sitting on the dragon, and assessed the situation with cold contempt. The situation was developing even better than he expected. Everything was heading towards a quick victory with minimal losses. To the Count, goblins seemed like low-level scum, unworthy of fear. He was confident that the battle would be over in less than an hour. So confident were the circumstances. One of the leaders appeared before him. A goblin beastmaster, messenger of corpses, sinner, level 79, no class. But now he had a title and power, marked by the blessing of the very god who had given him the strength. Lentian perceived his strength with disgust, not understanding where a simple goblin got so much power from. Everyone was surprised by the monster. Maybe it's the head of the goblins. We'll have to figure it out. Loder's sister, Lona, and her brothers showed up. She promised their father that they would distract the goblins, and the soldiers would handle the rest. The Count asked her to be careful, so that she would not become the same trash as her brother. She obeyed. The girl acted decisively, angering the monster and forcing him to move according to their plan. The monster, having tasted the fiery blows, became enraged. They wanted to quickly lure him out of the city. Lentian knew that if the beast retreated, it would run into his subordinates, and that would be undesirable. He left the city, Lentian holding back his irritation at the impudent girl who managed to provoke such anger in the Beast Lord. Lentian thought with irritation that this impudent girl was too often lucky in the most dangerous situations. Corpses lay everywhere, screams and pleas did not subside. The battle continued. A knight came out to meet the monster. He promised that the goblin's teeth would be his first trophy. The brave warrior urged his allies not to relax and to attack with all their might. The girl was proud that she was the best representative of the academy. She was going to win this battle. She used the highest rank martial art, the destroying spear. The girl's strength was 1,700 points, significantly exceeding the fighting potential of most of the other participants. The monster roared and became furious. He didn't like that some girl dared to attack him, which made the situation even more exciting. The roar of the Beastmaster hung in the air, a harbinger of the coming brutal battle. A powerful energy swirled around, creating incredible fury and chaos. The roar of the Beastmaster sounded, powerful energy, incredible fury. Lentian barely held on to the dragon's back, trying to calm her down before it was too late for everyone. No one could understand why everything turned out this way. It was as if fate had decided to test them to the end. How did this incredibly strong goblin appear, which no one could handle? The Count writhed in pain. He had no strength left. In despair, Lona fell to her knees before the monster, begging for salvation, calling out to her father-teacher. The monster was approaching inexorably, and everything indicated that there was no longer any salvation, and there could be none. Cries for help echoed through the streets. The entire city was gripped by terror, panic, and chaotic flight. Lona was captured. The aristocrats noticed the trouble. They were sure that retreat was impossible. Something terrible was happening in the distance. Inhuman screams were coming from there. The Count, not hiding his rage, screamed, demanding the return of his daughter, whom the monster grabbed with a tentacle and lifted into the air. His subjects tried to keep their cool and assured him that victory would come soon. The huge monster, with one powerful movement of its fist, threw the Count back with force, smashing his face into the hard ground. The knights immediately began the attack, trying to deliver the final fatal blow. At this moment, high-level magic was used on the battlefield, releasing a clot of energy towards the monster. A blinding light suddenly cut through the darkness, illuminating everything around and causing the enemies to recoil in fear. The goblins, overcome with panic, quickly abandoned the battle, hoping to escape and avoid certain death. The monster was finally defeated. Its body was covered in soot, and thick smoke rose from it, rushing into the sky. The magician was delighted with his own talent. He couldn't believe his eyes. He had won. It seemed that victory was already theirs. The magician even proclaimed himself a true traveler. But suddenly the monster opened its mouth and swallowed the hero whole, causing horror and panic among all the witnesses. Tension and despair hung in the air, as if foreshadowing a new wave of bloodshed. Lentian watched as the young goblin evolved. The goblin's fury reached level 80. The total combat power exceeded 3,100. This was already the hegemon level. Although the evolution was recent, the potential for growth in combat power was alarming. If he continues to devour everything around him, people are doomed to defeat. He has absorbed all the experience. There will be nothing left for Lentian. Lentian understood that he would have to intervene and contain this power. The goblin shouted with a sly grin that there would be no escape, that the apostates would be executed on the spot, and the attack began. People quickly fled into the city, where the city gates quickly closed, blocking the way for the enemies. The pursuit of the retreating enemies was merciless. No one spared those who tried to escape. Lentian ordered to immediately collect the corpses of the allies and retreat before the enemy regrouped. In the darkness, a glow flickered on the treetops. Lentian assumed that he had returned and ordered an immediate retreat. When the goblin grabbed the man and demanded that he give him what he was looking for, he replied that there was nothing like that. The goblin, despising the weak, decided to kill him. Lower creatures are not worthy of bargaining with him. But at the very last moment, a sword strike was unexpectedly delivered, almost interrupting Lentian's order. The swordswoman returned, ready to punish the guilty, and she did not arrive alone. She had support with her that could change the course of events. Marxer entered the fray, interrupting the brutal moment. Marxer's appearance changed the course of events dramatically. Ausden was surprised that the goblin was being treated so cruelly, despite being one of his own people. With him was little Emma. Finally, the holy swordswoman and the members of the hunting party appeared. Dawn was already breaking, and Lentian was also there, not expecting the hunters to arrive at that very moment. He originally intended to suppress the monster himself, but realized that intervention was not required. The monster activated the true nature of cruelty skill. Eating its own kind provided it with partial healing. Lentian was surprised that such a skill existed. Although due to the severe wounds, the recovery process would take time. Marxer noted that he did not die despite being pierced in the stomach and chest. His rank as a hegemon made him very resilient. The monster tried to retreat, asked to let him go, saying that he was lost and would not return. The swordswoman asked if he was the boss. The monster confirmed it and said that he wanted his property back. However, doubts began to arise within the group. No one had stolen anything, as had been previously claimed. The swordswoman knew that this was a trick. Another goblin leader had lured this monster into a trap to weaken the hunter's strength. A goblin could think of something like that. It was strange. They couldn't understand how goblins could do something so cunning. But still, Many travelers died at the clutches of the monster, and it was necessary to prevent its escape. Osden volunteered to solve the problem. He created a tornado that lifted the monster into the air. The swordswoman suddenly raised her head and noticed a dragon in the sky, on which stood a strange goblin rider. Lentian realized that this goblin could still be useful, but he understood that his fate was already sealed and the end was near. If you allow him to escape, you can take advantage of his helplessness in the future. Lentian was leaving. The swordswoman would not let Lentian go just like that. There would be no way to escape. Lentian cursed with irritation, dissatisfied with the blow. The swordswoman watched the events on the ground closely, wondering how such a small goblin was able to dodge the blow. Her calculations seemed to have been correct. Suddenly a hurricane of steel arose, and Lentian, sitting on the dragon, ordered to dodge dangerous attacks. He understood that if he stayed where he was, there was little chance of survival. The swordswoman hurried after him, not wanting to let her enemy go. She was sure that no matter what he did, she would catch up with him, no matter where he ran. Lentian noted that he would soon have to act decisively. He did not intend to stand aside while preparing for the upcoming battle. There was no time to wait any longer. They had to urgently take all the treasures before anyone else could get there. A huge monster burst into the cave, its body shaking with rage that it could no longer contain. It clearly felt like someone was watching from the shadows, hiding behind the rocks, waiting for the moment to strike. For a moment it froze, lost in memories. The monster came to the conclusion it was being deceived. Rage flared up in it. "Everyone will die," flashed through his mind. He didn't care who was targeting him. He wanted to destroy them all. "Come out!" the monster threatened. The monster's booming cry rang out, shaking the walls of the cave. The elf Yue and Ephria hid in the depths of the cave, listening tensely to the hum coming from outside. One of them hoped that the monster would not risk entering, while the other was ready to fight if necessary. The night remained calm. Her confidence came from Lentian's words, who had told her more than once to remain calm and not leave her shelter. She believed that he would not allow any trouble to happen. Outside, the monster continued to violently break in, growling and demanding that the ring be returned to him. At that moment, a shadow loomed over the cave. A red dragon descended with a roar, glittering in the moonlight. On his back stood Lentian. His appearance was expected, but it was no longer possible to escape from the trap that had been set. The dragon spread its wings and belched a stream of moonfire towards the monster. The flames roared across the rocks, enveloping the enemy. Lentian jumped down, quickly grabbing his crossbow, preparing for the inevitable tough battle. On his hand there was a ring shining, a familiar one, black with a green gleam. The monster, seeing it, stopped in rage. Realization hit his mind. Here stood the one who had his lost thing. Rage boiled. He realized he had been deceived. Lentian clenched his fist, watching the monster. On his hand, the ring that had caused the enemy's rage sparkled. It rushed forward, raining blow after blow, but Lentian remained in place, calm, as if anticipating the outcome. He allowed the monster to get dangerously close and then dealt a crushing blow. He invested in it not only physical strength, but also the potential awakened in the depths, which gave incredible power and energy. As if the inner boundaries had been torn apart, a message flashed in Lentian's mind. Obtained a super high-level skill known as Soul Destruction, which has destructive power and is capable of destroying the life energy of opponents. Activating the new gift, he put the very essence of destructive energy into his next attack. The monster, caught off guard, convulsed and fell to the ground. It was as if his very life force had been ripped out. He felt pain that reached to the depths of his mind. Lentian stood among the swirling ash, feeling an unknown force pulsating in his body. He hadn't expected to actually be able to obtain this skill, and now he realized how much he had changed. The monster staggered back to its feet, its body battered, but its eyes still blazing with hatred. The next blow hit Lentian, throwing him back. However, he, as if not feeling pain, immediately rose. A sinister grin, full of contempt and bloodthirsty anticipation, flashed across the monster's face for a moment. Before him stood a goblin, consumed by rage, his aura shimmering with ominous energy. Total strength, 2,700. Even Lentian admitted the enemy is really strong. But he also knew something else. He had already fought the hunters, and this played into his hands. The monster was weakened. The blows followed one after another. With each attack it became clear Lentian was superior. Despite the beast's brutal strength, he confidently dodged, leaving the enemy with fewer and fewer chances. The monster mentally cursed what was happening. It could not believe that it was losing to the goblin. But one of Lentian's powerful blows passed through the defense and knocked him to the ground. There was not a crumb of food around that could restore strength, not a chance for regeneration. If you get hit in a critical point, it's the end. Lentian approached, looking down. His voice was firm. If he hadn't been of the slightest use, he would have already torn out his heart. Lentian looked at the fallen monster. He felt neither pity nor hesitation. If necessary, you could seal his soul in a ring, strengthening yourself. But it was clear that victory was only the first step. The plan became more complicated when the Holy Swordswoman's squad intervened in the midst of the battle. This intervention led to the revelation. One of their men stood out in particular, Marshall, who had the rare ability to penetrate underground. He would be able to track them down easily, even in secluded places. The knight asked a direct question: what was the plan next? Lentian thought. The captured monster was clearly not a creature from the Great Grave, and in this he saw an opportunity. If we use his past and somehow connect him with the creatures of the Great Grave, we can clash these forces with each other. He decided to let them destroy the enemies of the Empire and the Holy Swordswoman themselves, inciting chaos with their own hands. The risk was great. The intervention of the creatures of the Great Grave could lead to unpredictable consequences. However, Lentian was sure that this path was the most effective way to achieve the goal. Lentian gave the order to inform all the creatures of the Great Grave about what had happened and to give them the demon's ring as proof of the insult. This was to be a pretext for revenge. If the rage of the ancient beings could be channeled in the right direction, the tide of the war could be turned. The Goblin Queen's voice was filled with iron determination as she gave the order. Now everything would go as Lentian had planned. The goblins gathered around the fire, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of the flames, creating an ominous atmosphere in the stillness of the night. Lentian, away from them, delved into the interface of his system. His attention was drawn to a notification. 300 points accumulated. This was enough to activate one of the advanced features that opened up new possibilities and potential. The system offered the summoning of a 6th-rank demon, a creature that would completely submit to the will of the summoner. Lentian thought about it. At first glance, it seemed like a good way to strengthen the camp's defenses, but he quickly dismissed the idea. In terms of strength, such a demon was comparable to the furious goblin. Resources were not worth wasting. Other options looked much more interesting. Dark fusion is an ability that allows one to absorb body parts from defeated opponents and integrate them into one's own body. Blood of destruction. Every hit dealt by the wearer inflicted a destruction effect. Holy-type abilities were neutralized. It was the perfect weapon against saints and those who drew power from the light. Lentian frowned, analyzing the possibilities. He imagined himself merging with the mechanical dragon's wings and then absorbing the flight skill, or how it connects with the eyes of a jellyfish, acquiring the ability to petrify with a glance. Lentian made a decision. Although dark fusion seemed limited at first glance, Lentian smiled with the corner of his lips. Now a new phase of the game had begun. All that was left was to find suitable prey. The system reported a failure in blood exchange, but in return, Lentian received the miracle effect and restored 300 life points. He was pleasantly surprised and humorously noted that if the system were a person, especially a woman, he would thank it. Then the dark fusion exchange was successful, which gave a new boost, reducing the limitation of the goblin ocean of absorption. Lentian received 2 valuable awards at once, each of which opened the way to new levels of power. This event opened up before him limitless opportunities for rapid growth of power and influence. Yue and Euphria watched Lentian, noticing the change in him. He looked tired but content. The women strongly advised him to rest, because the body could soon not withstand the stress. A little rest will help you regain your strength before the next challenges. The leader clearly demanded something, and they wanted to give it to him. The girls wondered if he wanted that very entertainment and to plunge into the tender bliss of ecstasy. But he politely refused. His body could not withstand the constant loads. Lentian asked for only 1 day's break. The chief received a message that the man had done something wrong again and stolen 2 guns. They went to check out the situation. Loder sat on the floor, lamenting and blaming himself for what had happened. He had ruined his family, his sister, his father. He had condemned them to death. He felt guilty towards his family and was deeply distressed by the loss of his parents and sister. He saw Lentian come. Loder threw himself at his feet, his eyes filled with tears, his only concern being whether his parents were alive. In his tormented soul there still glimmered hope, weak but stubborn, not allowing it to break completely. Lentian reported that his father was bitten to death by the hegemon, and his sister's body had long been desecrated. He raised his eyes to the sky. He shouldn't have behaved like that. He shouldn't have acted like a smartass. Loder, clutching his head, realized his mistake and regretted his arrogance. Luckily, Afreya was still alive, and there was hope that the priests from the church could save her. He was already dead inside. He had no reason to live. Suddenly, he jumped up and ran forward, his head smashed against the rock. Loder lay bleeding after hitting the wall. He wanted to leave this life. The pangs of conscience did not let him go. Despite the severe emotional exhaustion, he continued to think about others. A lot of time passed, and the hatred that Lentian once felt gradually dissipated. It was time to acknowledge and accept his own suffering. In the great forest of graves, the beast lord of the Goblin settlement appeared, seeking a meeting with Lord Nu. He had urgent and extremely important business to attend to. Delay could have dire consequences. Before him appeared a half-bull, half-goblin, of terrifying appearance, of enormous size, from which power and might emanated. He asked for help. He wanted to get his things back, but he said that his entire clan had been destroyed. People were to blame for this. He was called the Man-Eater New Dali, and he gave the order. Continue the battle and listen to him. He returned everything to him. The beast lord bowed before Nudali. The ring shone with strength and power. His claws tightly clutched the ancient relic, the only thing that could grant salvation in this hell. Despite the agreement with the church prohibiting trade on human territory, he was given permission to enter the territory and take revenge. It had been a long time since he had last fed on fresh flesh, and now the thirst for revenge and power filled him again. He enlisted his support. The Man-Eater New Dali will support his revenge. It was time to remember the forgotten taste again. The taste of battle, fear, and blood that filled his heart with strength. Several days passed. Lentian carefully studied his system, a level 70 goblin with the nickname Evil God. Also, Almighty Creator and Blessed by God. Total 3,100. Skills: Dark Transformation, Blood of Doom, Rupture. Despite much training and significant growth and a sense of control over the Blood of Doom, he understood that the gap in strength with the Sword Saint, who had 4,000 points of power, was huge. The only chance was to unite, although everything always turned out to be much more difficult than desired. As long as he was one step ahead, he could gather an army and attack Guangming. He no longer had to pretend. Soon, Lin Chang received news that the furious goblins were waiting for him at the cave. The Goblin Queen was troubled by internal doubts about the need to go to Guangming with him. He dispelled her doubts. Her help was not needed. Her presence could complicate the situation in the fight against the Holy Swordswoman. The knight had already given orders to the goblins, demanding obedience, and she threatened Lentian with punishment if he failed. He insisted that it was unknown who would be punished and who would punish. Lentian broke away from her embrace and walked forward. He was very serious before the fight. The knight could not hide her surprise. After Lentian left, she was left alone, deep in thought, realizing that serious trials lay ahead of them. Lentian's sharp and cold answer hurt her, leaving bitterness in her soul and forcing her to seriously think about what was said. Lentian emerged from behind the curtain of the waterfall and immediately came face to face with a huge, ugly monster. The Beast Lord bowed before him. New Dali was surprised. The Lord's friend turned out to be a low goblin. In front of him stood New Dali, a level 80 bull demon, berserker specialization, with the title of 7th rank demon and cannibal. It was a terrible man-eater, much more powerful than expected. Demon Bull didn't expect to see Lentian. He was counting on a 6th rank demon at most. But he was wrong. Despite this, Lentian showed no fear. The Beast Lord assured New Dali that he was not weak, although he considered his words nonsense. A decisive battle awaited them, the one that was supposed to put everything in its place. The city did not sleep. Guards protected the fortress walls. The watch was on 24 hours a day. Guangming was in an alarm state, preparing for an attack. There were many swordswomen inside, ready to fight. The demon was about to release his beast. Suddenly, the earth shook. The knights felt the approach of trouble. The monsters, including many bull demons, charged, rushing straight towards the humans. Everything that happened resembled a powerful earthquake. The earth shook, rocks crumbled, the sky darkened. The bull demon seemed incredibly terrifying, but Lentian believed that a sentient goblin could be much more dangerous. The monsters began to devour the city's inhabitants. Guangming was on the verge of being captured. The smell of fresh meat hung in the air, awakening a brutal appetite and uncontrollable rage in the bull demons. At the most critical moment, the holy swordswoman appeared, ready to correct the mistakes of the past. All the streets were filled with bull demons that came from the graves and wreaked havoc among the residents. She understood that the bull demons were brought to the city by the escaped goblin leader, and he should have been destroyed last time. And her mistake, allowing them to come, her pursuit of the goblin, became a fatal mistake. It was her mistake, which she now intended to correct at any cost, even if she died. The swordswoman quickly rushed into the attack, determined to destroy the bull demon at any cost. Lentian stood on the roof of the chapel, carefully watching the fierce duel between the swordswoman and the bull demon. Even though the demon's overall strength was slightly lower than that of the light swordswoman, he had a significant advantage in his fighting style, a brutality and relentlessness that gave him the advantage in a protracted fight. The demon used earth techniques, powerful elements that he carefully prepared and waited for the right moment to use. The opponents literally drowned in the sands, which sucked people into a deadly trap. Lentian called upon the power of the earth, and a tornado rose from the depths, a sparkling golden tornado that destroyed everything. An explosion of earth elements shook the surrounding area, and people near the epicenter of the battle fell to the ground, feeling the full force of the impact. The situation became increasingly tense, and the outcome of the battle became less and less predictable. The Beast Lord captured one of the knights, and the situation became complicated. Marxer was now under the power of monsters. Ima rushed to help. A master of advanced archery skills and wielder of the divine wind arrow, she entered the battle. The arrows that were fired never reached their target, scattering in the air as if something had stopped them. Ima anxiously tried to understand what exactly had happened and why her arrows had not reached their target. Lentian thought about his agility, realizing that without it he would not have been able to stand up to the elven race. Despite the tension, the monster obeyed Lentian and abandoned Marshall's body. Thanks to his Goblin Lord technique, Lentian had power on the battlefield. Lentian approached Marxer's body to absorb his power, turning the fallen enemy into a source of his own power. The girl was shocked by what she saw. She called the Marshal for help. At the same time, Osden demonstrated the power of his advanced skills, splitting stone and unarmed grab. A tense battle, filled with skill and strength, unfolded between Marshall and Lentian. In response to Marshall's active skill, Lentian immediately used a technique, an unarmed grab, blocking the burst of energy. The Marshal regretted the failed attack. Lentian used the aftertaste skill. The girl watched the knights fight attentively. The Marshal seemed incredibly strong to her, but even he fell victim in the battle. Now his remains were being swallowed by monsters. She didn't understand how that was possible. Lentian felt a surge of strength. His level increased to 75, and his total combat power reached 3,200. The increase of 5 levels was truly significant. The power was boiling in his veins, demanding an outlet. The archer smiled, firing an arrow towards Lentian, but he deftly dodged it. The second arrow also missed thanks to a well-timed dodge. The girl, sitting on the roof, noticeably accelerated her shooting, and if it weren't for the stone wall, Lentian wouldn't have been able to avoid being hit. Lentian gave the order to the monster to demolish the bell tower, and the monster rushed to attack, destroying the walls. The tension in the air grew with each passing second. The decisive moment was approaching inexorably. The arrows suddenly stopped running. The monster held the girl back, thwarting her desperate attack. Ima won't catch up with him. Lentian is watching. He has time to hide while she waits for her skills to recharge. The enemy runs away, but the archer does not retreat. She shoots arrows in pursuit without losing sight of him. Lentian dodges the blows. The heroine is exhausted. She can hardly stand on her feet. Her strength is running out. She must hold on until the end. There is very little left, and all this will not be a sacrifice in vain. She falls to the ground, the monster looming over her, ready to deliver the final blow, its mouth open. Lentian intervenes, drives away the monster, not allowing it to finish her off, and approaches the defenseless girl. Such a powerful elf, she can't just be taken and gobbled up like some worthless prey in a cave. He picks her up in his arms and carries her away, not allowing the monster to finish what he started. When she wakes up, she finds herself tied up and a goblin stands in front of her. It's Lentian. He's naked. What's happening? What he's doing? It's not like a normal magic technique. The knots don't give in. He mocks and does not hide his goals. She is confused, not understanding what is happening, or simply does not want to believe what is happening. The swordswoman fights the goblin bull, striking despite her fatigue, and eventually defeats her opponent. The monster's body falls to the ground. She cuts his throat. It wasn't easy with him. She slowly turns around and freezes in horror. What is happening defies description. Ima sits on her knees, clutching the hilt of her sword, ready to strike. She no longer wants to live. The swordswoman notices this. Too late to stop the tragedy, fate is approaching. She deals the decisive blow. Ima is almost dead. The swordswoman holds her close. She doesn't want her to leave her. The faces of the dead float through her mind. Marshall and Osden all long dead. Ima is in despair, knowing that she is carrying a goblin's child within her. She will not give birth to it. The swordswoman must avenge them. The past comes crashing down. Fear and shame grip the mind, but the desire for revenge becomes stronger. Ima is dead. The swordswoman is left alone. Now only she can fulfill the will of the fallen and take revenge. Madness takes hold of the swordswoman. She raises her sword, determination and fury burning in her eyes. She strikes, impaling herself. The victim becomes her oath. Darkness envelops the body. A golden glow emanates from the swordswoman, and she rises into the sky in a shining ball, illuminating everything around her. The knights retreat in panic at her command, unable to withstand her power, frightened by her new, terrifying form. Her power grows. Even her allies are afraid to approach her. Everyone runs away from the saint. Lentian turns around, sees the approaching glow, and realizes that everything is getting out of control. Panic sets in, equipment is launched, the ground cracks underfoot, power fills everything around. Lentian understands that everything is bad, no one can hide from it. The swordsman's highest technique is gaining momentum. The ancient artifact, Supreme Retribution, has been activated, and its power is now embodied within her. She descends to the ground, her strength reaches its peak. The total combat power is estimated at 5,000. Lentian manages to escape. He wonders why the swordswoman took such a risk. He thought she was a knight, but it turns out she is a mage. She is known as the invincible holy swordswoman, her blade a symbol of the kingdom's protection and strength. The people celebrate, rejoicing at her power, but the swordswoman's stomach is wounded, and her strength is halved. The fighting power drops to 2,500, but the enemy is not yet defeated. The battle continues. It's not over yet. The real killer hasn't been killed yet. She drinks a potion to recover, but suddenly she's knocked down by a powerful blow to the back. The goblin attacks again, acting in a sneaky manner, his goal being to weaken the saint at a crucial moment. People rush to her aid, risking their own lives to protect her from the looming new threat of death. Lentian stands at the top of the tower, watching the battle below. He is already preparing the next devastating blow. The defenders of the kingdom rise to battle, asking the swordswoman to retreat and heal her wounds. Lentian reacts to the insult. Rage flashes in his eyes. His hand reaches for the crossbow. He reminds him that he is a goblin and can't believe that anyone else wants to lecture him. The answer is immediate. The tension is rising. The knights will avenge the count and kill him. The crowd explodes with rage and fear. Lentian draws his sword, rushes forward, and deals with the attackers without hesitation. Blood fills the ground. The knights refuse to retreat. Their goal is to buy time for the saint. Despite their fear, they march forward, united in desperate determination and a battle cry. They will give their hearts for victory. Lentian's blows shatter the armor, the metal cracking under the force of the mad blade. He will take their hearts if that's what they want. His eyes burn as he collects the hearts of his enemies, becoming a living embodiment of rage. The battle continues. The chaos grows, the ground trembles from the blows, and the battle enters its brutal climax. The swordswoman goes on the attack despite her fatigue. Her movements are slower, but her will remains unbreakable. Lentian rushes at her. The fight becomes tough. Even with a strength of 2,500, it is difficult for him to hold back the onslaught. He uses high sorcery, calling upon magical threads, and the knights fall under his blow. The swordswoman activates the divine sacred sword. Her energy flares up, her strength grows again. Demonic skills have little effect. Her holiness suppresses darkness and breaks spells. The outcome of the fight is uncertain. Both are at risk of losing, and the tension is reaching its limit. The advantage is on the side of the saint. Her power affects even Lentian himself, and this becomes clear. It's time to make a choice, retreat or fight to the end. The stakes are too high. The knights rush into battle again, but Lentian grabs them and throws them away with terrifying force. The battle continues, swords flash, spells tear the earth, and the outcome will be decided only by the final blow. Lentian strikes at the knights. They are confused and afraid, not understanding how to resist his onslaught. The swordswoman calls to Lentian to stop and come closer, trying to hold him back, but he leaves, hiding among the bodies. Using the bodies of his enemies, Lentian confidently dodges attacks, his speed surpassing that of the holy swordswoman. She chases after him, trying to break the enemy's faith and weaken his defenses in order to win. An hour passes. The knights in agony ask for death, begging the saint to end their torment. Lentian declares that it will all end here, and she will not leave as a winner. The swordswoman screams at him not to run away, but Lentian takes the hostage and threatens him with death. She kills the prisoner. He hopes to break the saint, make her go crazy and lose her will. The methods of killing the saints that Lentian devised were far more terrifying than any demons known to this world. Lentian kills everyone in a row, and the swordswoman is shocked to realize that she destroyed those whom she was supposed to protect. She grabs her head in despair, and then Lentian throws a knife smeared with his blood at her, wounding her in the chest. The swordswoman falls to her knees, overcome with pain, thinking about her fate and divine justice. She tried to protect everyone. It starts to rain. She falls into the mud, defiled by the blood of defeat and losing her strength. God has abandoned her. Lentian invites her to become his ally, join the Goblin army and overthrow the religious fanatics. He calls her strong but broken and promises new power in a new world without the old gods. Thunder rumbles as the swordswoman lies unconscious on the damp ground, surrounded by rain and darkness. Lentian approaches, his gaze full of desire to possess her. He slowly approaches the defenseless woman. Footsteps are heard in the distance. A church detachment appears. People rush to help. Monsters retreat in fear. Lentian looks after them, stunned by the unexpected intervention. The church comes into battle. A garrison of knights appears behind us. There are many of them. They are advancing, ready for battle and rescue. The bishop of the Holy Guard of the Cross shows his authority and determination. The swordswoman lies on the wet ground. No one expected that misfortune would befall her. It turns out that the goblin is to blame for everything. Lentian tenses up, preparing for battle, but the knights advance with full force and confidence. The knight notices the misfortune that has befallen the swordswoman. His thoughts are full of pity and determination. Lentian reveals his true face, a goblin hiding behind a weak and harmless appearance. His power is terrifying, and he is a true demon ready to fight to the end for his goal. The Holy Guard calls upon the powers of God and prepares to banish the demons, wishing to bring prosperity to the world. The knights stand ready to attack Lentian and his dark forces. Lentian waits, assessing his enemies, his magic enveloping his body, preparing a defense. He notices the knights' heavy armor, but is surprised by their speed and agility in battle. The battle begins. The total strength of the Holy Guard reaches 3,000 units. The pressure increases. The knights are on the attack, their power and faith giving them an advantage against the demon and his sorcery. Lentian realizes the power of the church. Lentian uses decomposition magic, seeing how blood kills enemies, and decomposes their bodies and reduces their power. His holy power is forbidden magic, but it is not always strong enough against such troops. The demon is revealed within him, revealing his true nature and not just a goblin under a mask. Realizing that the plan has failed, Lentian decides to retreat, avoiding complete defeat. The knights prepare to return, realizing that the child needs purification and spiritual guidance. Without a priest, a child risks falling into debauchery, which threatens dangerous consequences for everyone. One of the knights asks whether the bishop will be able to deal with the goblins and protect the shrine. Also mentioned is the priestess of Freya, who plays an important role in future events and destinies. The bishop admits that time for salvation is already too short. It is expected that the archbishop has already chosen a new priestess. Searching for the old one no longer makes sense. The knights realize that the future depends on a new priestess, and the divine will that must be trusted. Lentian shakes off the dust, examines the battlefield. The bodies of the monsters are already buried and forgotten underground. The goblin bull's body remained in place. Now we can finally arrange a worthy feast at his expense. The system displays the message. Congratulations on reaching level 80. Lentian goes home. The girls are wondering if he won again. I think he's become even stronger. They ask to tell me everything. The leader returns home. Everyone notices that he has become even stronger. His strength has clearly increased. He reminds us of his deeds and of the holiness of the swordswoman he defeated and had a relationship with. It is a pity that the Holy Church took it away, but this does not prevent us from recognizing its power and status. The knight shows interest and invites him to her place. He is very cool. She wants to reward him. But he suggests discussing important matters. They celebrate a major victory and the time they have gained for the tribe's development and plan their move. We need to find a new place where there is no fear of revenge from the human race and its followers. The new house will be in a sacred place, where even representatives of the Holy Church are afraid to enter without permission. A holy grave. The goblins gather in the center of the tribe, discussing the terms of peace and planning further development. Holy Grave signed an agreement with the Holy Church on non-aggression and peaceful coexistence. The treaty created a safe zone for the tribe to grow and prosper without external threats. The next step is to prepare for reproduction and strengthening of the lineage in order to increase the numbers. The main objective is to capture people alive, avoiding killing them for strategic advantage. Those who resist are allowed to act according to their own discretion and circumstances. Lentian mounts his dragon and prepares to fly away to complete important tasks outside the tribe. The goblins agree to the plan and are ready to act in accordance with the new peace strategy. In a few days, having passed through more than 10 villages, they managed to capture 230 women for the tribe. This is far from the desired number, because the route is 700 kilometers, and one has to pass through 19 villages. There are 2 small cities ahead. The task is to catch more than 1,000 people to strengthen and expand the tribe. A small town is visible on the horizon. Bags are being prepared to quickly capture the inhabitants and move on. The town of Cursella is greeted by the mayor, who tries to calm the residents by saying that it is just a group of goblins. They laugh, remembering how many goblins they have already managed to destroy, proud of their strength and courage. Cursella's cohort prepares to meet the goblins at the city gates and destroy any who dare come. There is a warning, though. These goblins are stronger and bigger than normal ones, so don't underestimate them. Ace, a level 50 adventurer, accepts the challenge, promising to blow his enemies to smithereens. Everyone is preparing for battle. The tension is growing. There is a clash ahead, the outcome of which depends on much. The goblins will be here soon. The people under the leadership of Mayor Frank are preparing for the coming battle. Screams are heard all around. Residents are tense and ready to fight for their homes and lives without fear. Among them are words about a competition to see who can kill more goblins, and the loser promises to treat everyone. But one of the warriors warns that the opponent is taking on too much and is ambitious, and they should compete with him. Another is confident in his abilities and promises to deal with the enemy alone, calling on him to simply observe. Suddenly a dragon appears with a goblin on its back, causing amazement and fear among those present. The dragon is followed by a huge army of goblins, ready to attack the city and its defenders. People are panicking and trying to understand why the dragon joined the enemies and what kind of monsters these are. In fear and confusion, they begin to retreat, rushing to escape the impending threat. Some people scream and ask not to be abandoned, but many residents try to leave the city, saving their lives. Lentian wondered if so many people had prepared to fight the goblins on this day. He decided to move forward, preparing for battle, assessing the strength of his opponents and his own capabilities. People fought desperately with the goblins, everyone trying to protect their home and loved ones from the enemy. One of the knights reminds Ace that he promised to deal with the goblins alone, and he needs to hurry. The panic grew, and screams and shouts were heard as the goblins displayed their terrible strength in battle. Many have wondered whether these creatures are actually goblins or something more terrible. People fell and died, their hopes for an easy victory quickly crumbling in the brutal battle. The screams of horror from the people could be heard for many kilometers. The city fell before the monsters' advance. The goblins were surprised to think that everything should have been more fun, but the reality turned out to be different. The goblins, having received everything they wanted, left the city and continued on their way. All that remains of the once majestic city are ashes, rubble, and the broken bodies of exhausted people. The smell of people spreads within a radius of hundreds of kilometers, which will attract demons. The smell can be felt everywhere, warned the man-eating hawk. The production process produces a large amount of sweat, which increases durability. It cannot be interrupted, even by the smell of goblins. It is no wonder that people are afraid of the Great Tomb, because the atmosphere evokes fear and anxiety. Being in the Great Tomb for the first time, Lentian was surprised, but he agreed to whatever was necessary for future safety. The cannibal froze in amazement. So many people. He didn't understand why Lentian had brought them here at all. Hawk listens to the explanations and learns that there are many people in this place because they are tools for the reproduction of goblins. The man-eating hawk is angry because this is a point of the agreement he does not want war. The treaty between the Great Tomb and the Church prohibits conflict, ensuring peace and order here. People caught before coming here, it does not violate the agreement. Their safety is guaranteed with the support of the cannibal. If problems arise, it is recommended to contact the hawk, who takes responsibility for protection. Goblins can develop peacefully in this place, without the threat of attacks or conflicts with the church and people. The man-eating hawk retires to report the situation to the honorable ones without ceremony. Lentian breathes a sigh of relief, realizing that he can now calmly continue the development of the tribe. 3,000 goblins have been registered this month, and their numbers continue to grow every day. UA noted that none of the 10 hybrids tested from the dominant species survived. The production of hybrids and dominant species proved impossible, and further development is questionable. Despite this, there are plans to begin capturing demonic beasts to increase the number of lower goblins. Lentian needs them only as a resource to replenish magical and physical deficiencies. Evening came. Lentian was thinking about his future plans in his tent. Now there is no need to personally hunt demons. A simulation system will be used. The life simulation system is launched to speed up the process of development and population growth. To expand your power, you need to breed a large number of goblins and increase your army. Lentian leads an army into the enchanted forest to begin hunting and improve the capabilities of his tribe. On the first day, 4th and 5th level demons are encountered, all of which are destroyed and captured for goblin food. In a few days, 500 level 1 demons were captured, including a rabbit and a crying monkey for the tribe. On the way back, a level 7 bear with a strength of 3,000 points is captured, improving the race's resources. Additionally, several other level 7 demons were captured, which significantly strengthened the tribe. After 3 months, the tribe expands and is replenished with 2,000 reproductive tools for growth. While enjoying rapid development, the tribe is suddenly attacked by humans. Lentian was surprised by the attack of people, who would have thought that there could be enemies in the developed Great Tomb. First choice, meet face-to-face. Second choice, defend positions. Third choice, try to start negotiations. The ally remained silent. The soldiers landed from the mountain, and a massacre began in the tribe, engulfed in chaos and blood. Surrounded by the saint and the generals, Lentian left the battlefield with a few survivors, defeated. The result was the lion's fury, but first he had to make sure he wouldn't bite in order to survive the fight. The score for the battle is 10 points and 100. The reward is life points multiplied by 10, the time until the end of the month. It's time to come up with a plan before they arrive, so we can take advantage of the opportunity to strike back. The main enemy and his tribe live in a high forest where the thorn in the eye of the Lionheart Empire must be pulled out. It is also necessary to confront the Divine Holy Church, which is strengthening its power in these lands. A month later, no one knew if the enemies would come, because the Great Tomb had signed a treaty with the Church. Hawk was doubtful. This simply cannot be. No one would dare to break the ancient treaty protected by blood oaths. Lentian insisted. Outside he saw the approaching armies, accelerating, preparing to avenge past defeats. The hawk realized with horror that this was true. The battle was inevitable, and the outcome had already been predetermined by the forces of fate. Lentian was not worried. The man-eating hawk promised that no one would allow people to commit outrage and enter the Great Tomb. He promised to return as soon as he reported the situation while the enemy army was advancing into the Goblin territory. A large army gloomily approached the walls of the forbidden place where an entire family had once perished. The warriors gathered with the knowledge that today they would return home victorious, ready to destroy the goblins. The knights saw a dragon with a goblin flying on it, The intelligence was not wrong. A fierce battle is coming where there will be only one winner. Evil must be punished. People in anger blamed the goblins for the destruction of dozens of villages, which were left without protection. Lentian reminded them of the agreement between the tomb and the church, but the people still decided to challenge him, ignoring him. The enemies called the goblins rats that had entered the great grave and had no plans to keep peace. The commander threatened to destroy them all with an army of 10,000 to avenge Grandfather and Iris and to tear the goblins apart. So that's how it is that the descendants came to avenge the death of their family. The conversation was about the holy swordswoman whom Lentian called juicy and sweet like honey, a motive for the warrior's rage. She wanted him to shut up. To shut his mouth, the dirty goblin decided to mock the saint. The commander ordered the soldiers to go forward and avenge their own, preparing for a fierce battle. Lentian wanted to see his reaction. Who would have thought that he would get angry because of a couple of words? "Wait, Noon, soon you and your race will be in great trouble," the knight threatened. Lentian was not at all surprised because everything was going exactly according to his calculations and predictions. The sluggard killed one of the knights, holding his exhausted body with one hand. He made the first move. 10 minutes ago. How could these insignificant goblins catch so many people and monsters? The spies said from the knight's army. Watching from above the settlement of Lentian, it is not surprising that the saint suffered at their hands. We must report everything as soon as possible. But they were exposed and fell at the hands of the monsters, caught in a trap. They had no chance of salvation. The fight was not equal. All troops obey the order. Attack. Cut out the goblins, the commander commanded. The knights went on the offensive. The commander mocked the goblin, who probably got scared and shit his pants. He shouted to Lentian, "This is what happens when you anger a lion." He promised to break all his bones. Soon he will learn the price of his impudence. The man-eating hawk appeared. He had heard all the threats. So it was true, he thought. They had come after all, to the Forbidden City. It was the man-eating hawk that warned the knight, "Be careful. Hawk hasn't seen the church for a long time. It seems they have forgotten the treaty they proposed." "Yastri cannibal. This is the order of the chief. He has no right to negotiate," the knights warned. "You won't have much time to show off. When the old wreck dies, he'll crush their heads himself," the hawk threatened. "You don't need to worry about the future. I'm here on Dad's orders to exterminate the goblins. If you dare interfere, you'll die. All troops obey the order and continue the attack. Kill all who stand in the way," the knight commanded. "You seem to think that the Great Tomb is a place where you can come and go as you please. Hawk will not allow that to happen. So the Great Tomb has decided to protect the goblins and will not betray the enemies of the Holy Church." "You could say that," Hawk replied. "He will not allow people to desecrate these lands." The knight fell silent. He wanted this fight. It was a mockery of the great church. The knights, overcome with fear, begged the Duke's Highness to give the order to retreat before it was too late. "Holy Guard, I heard right. The lions of the Empire would rather die in battle than remain deserters," the warrior insisted. "We will kill them. This is not an escape, but a return to prepare for an even greater battle." Lentian addressed the man-eating hawk, Lord. He was sorry that all this had to be done because of him. It's not just for him, but to show those guys from the church that the Great Tomb is no longer afraid of them. "We need to develop our clan as quickly as possible. Several elders in the Great Tomb believe in Lentian. They even asked me to tell you that if he can become the Goblin King, he will be worthy of entering the real Great Tomb." In the real Great Tomb, such good prospects pleased Lentian. Meanwhile, in the city there was a rally. "The saint is not worthy to hold a blade again. She breeds goblins and is considered a saint." How disgusting. It's a shame that they once loved her so much and she's just a piece of shit. A liar. Disgusting. We need to kill the goblin. This is all the king needed. The goblin problem hasn't been solved yet. And now this. On one side, the people, and on the other, she. The decision was his. Alice sat on her lap, nursing a small goblin who was riding a wooden horse. He didn't expect her to change so much because of one goblin. If he had known then, he would have killed him immediately. "Alice, you have to move away." He could have hurt her. She was protecting a small child. She did not understand what your majesty meant. For the sake of the people and the future of his empire, he must put it back on the right path. He raised his blade. "Your majesty, even he would do this to her." She fought. Highest level sacred skill, sacred radiance. She fell to the ground. Cardinal appeared. He used a top-tier sacred skill, sacred prison sentence. She was locked behind bars. The decision was left to the cardinal. Looking at her, the king could not decide. No, this is her punishment. She must accept the punishment of the gods. She no longer has divine power. The gods had not abandoned her, the cardinal insisted. She had abandoned them. Give up the goblin, don't fight, Mistress Alice. The cardinal used the holy light. No, Alice screamed. Her child was dead. The crowd of people in the street shouted health to the emperor. They were glad that they were finally free of the monster. Many asked where the saint was, claiming that if she was dead, it would be better for her to die. The king declared that he had fulfilled their will and warned that anyone who dared to say another word about the Holy Virgin of the Sword would be punished. Will be held accountable. The baby goblin's corpse was thrown to the ground, causing horror among those present. The next day it was reported that Alice had disappeared, causing confusion and questions. Meanwhile, goblins appeared in the settlement, who now know how to use magic. It called itself a level 70 berserker, belonging to the goblin race in the dark mage class. His titles were transformed by magic, and he also bore the blessing of the gods as a glutton. The goblins, watching this, did not think it was anything special, and asked for more meat and blood so that they could also reach level 70. There was no shortage of monsters in the forest. The goblins just sat around doing nothing, if they wanted to eat. They will have to catch prey on their own and simultaneously gain combat experience. They did not actively seek to increase their strength and survived only thanks to the leader. The leader remained very dangerous. Lentian believed that he was already doing a lot for the tribe, but the goblins still depended on him. Suddenly, Lentian was surprised by the appearance of the man-eating hawk. He wanted to introduce him to one of the rulers. Hawk was sure that Lentian would be glad to meet the other rulers, because the more beds you know, the better. In case of dangerous encounters with someone who should not be messed with, you could hide behind your allies and not lose. The forest trembled from the footsteps of the Golden Monitor, the ruler of the south, whose strength was renowned in the 4 regions. Lentian stood, watching as the golden-scaled giant emerged from behind the trees, glittering in the sun. Not very strong, thought Lentian. Golden Vartan race, half-human, level 88, combat power, 3,990. The man-eating hawk introduced the Lord of the South, and the tension instantly hung in the air. The Golden Monitor looked over the goblins and humans like a hunter assessing potential prey. An aura of dominance emanated from him, but Lentian did not flinch. His clan stood behind him. He wanted to take everything. Disputes flared up. Who owns the territory? Who is in charge? Whose will be carried out? The Golden Varan clenched his fists. The challenge was accepted. Lentian's power was ready to resolve the issue without words. The goblin stepped forward, confident and calm, his eyes glowing with a cold light. The earth shook, tree branches cracked, the magic in the air flared and lit up with a powerful flame. Lentian made it clear that he would not yield even to the Lord. The land belongs to the strongest. The man-eating hawk supported Lentian. The Golden Monitor growled, but respect flashed in his eyes. Challenge accepted. The moment of truth was coming. 2 worlds, 2 forces, 1 path to power. He wanted to kill Lentian. A powerful blow followed. The Monitor lizard retreated into the shadows of the trees, its gaze casting a threat upon the land it had failed to subdue. But the cannibal will not always be around. Varan will return, and then revenge will fall on the enemies with full, indomitable force. The hawk followed him with a look of alarm, as if he already knew that this story was far from over. Lentian stood calmly. His thoughts were heavy as stone. Hawk apologized. He didn't know he was so greedy. He understood. Varan's greed was only the beginning of future problems, not yet open conflicts. If Lentian killed, he would take his place. Being the ruler of the South means you can summon demons. Kill now or play by the rules of the Great Tomb. The freedom to kill demons was sweeter than power, and even for nothing he would not have become different. He could have been punished or made the ruler of the South. White bones lay on the ground, the sun glinting on gnawed skulls and broken horns. The goblin felt changes in his body, growth, strength. The rage inside became unbearably alive. He went through an evolution, gaining a new form and strength, becoming a creature that is almost impossible to resist. With one swing of his sting, he tore down trees as if they were thin blades of grass, leaving only stumps around. His power grew so much that in the eyes of his enemies he became invincible, a walking hurricane of destruction and fury. Meanwhile, a nearby monitor lizard, unaware of the danger, played with a dragonfly, becoming easy prey for the predator. A huge goblin hand emerged from the shadows, and the lizard threw itself into the water, saving itself from death. The dragonfly with transparent wings disappeared into the sky. The monitor lizard disappeared into the waters of the spring. His life was cut short instantly. The smell of fresh blood spread through the forest, awakening in its inhabitants the dormant instinct of hunting and anxiety. The creature looked like a baby, but it was over 1.5 meters tall, and it moved quickly. The hunter shared. The taste of the flesh was rich and sweet, like that of young men with good blood. The goblin licked his lips, savoring the aftertaste. If there were more of these creatures, his tribe would develop 3 times faster. The Varan's dwelling was carefully hidden among the stone cliffs, where neither light nor prying eyes could reach. The child kept running away into the forest. The mother grumbled, not understanding what the child was looking for in dangerous places full of demons. Varan waved it off, believing that no one would dare touch the chieftain's son. Suddenly they heard a cracking sound, and the female monitor froze in horror. In front of her lay the white bones of a baby, dry as ash. A goblin jumped out of the shadows, his eyes glowing with hunger and joy. He had no respect for the chieftain's territory and laughed at her words. One of the goblins noticed her face and whispered how pretty she was, giving in to dark desires. Varan snatched the spear. The goblin did not respect the chieftain's wife. He had to pay for it with his life. The tribe swore to protect women and children. No one had the right to harm those who were defenseless. But he didn't have time. The blow came from behind. The goblin approached him stealthily. The warrior fell. The goblin removed his disguise, piercing the enemy with a spear. This was the end of the monitor lizard's fight. He promised to leave the woman alive, but only for the chief. Now the entire settlement belonged to them. Screams could be heard from the other end of the village. The demons had broken in. Someone recognized the marks. It was the goblin tribe that had attacked suddenly. The elders were running around in panic. There was no leader. The enemy was at the gate. One of the warriors shouted for everyone to gather and take up arms. The goblins stood motionless, as if they had become part of the earth themselves, awaiting the blow with silent and cold calm. The battle had begun, but there was a sense of hopelessness in the air. Hope for salvation was becoming less and less with each passing minute. With cries of rage and hungry vengeance, the monitor lizards rushed into battle, demanding that blood be shed for the fallen. The attack was swift, but the goblins threw each of the attackers away with inhuman speed. One of the ravens tried to stab him with a knife, but received a deadly response, a blade in the stomach which deprived him of his strength. The rest of the attackers retreated, taking the wounded with them. The leader ordered not to kill everyone. They need to survive and reproduce. He whispered that he would take the most beautiful ones personally for the master. One of the monitor lizards lay in a pool of blood, barely moving, calling for its master, hoping for salvation, which did not come. The chieftain of the Varan returned too late. Before his eyes lay charred ruins, and the entire tribe was destroyed. He didn't believe that this was the work of the goblins. They wouldn't dare. He had been in the goblin village recently. Everything was quiet and calm. The wounded warrior, with his last breath, reported that the mistress and heiress had been taken away by enemies, asking for an immediate pursuit. The air smelled of his wife, and the heavy scent of goblins hung nearby. With fury in his eyes, he vowed to destroy every last one of them. Anger burned his mind. He rushed back to the goblin village. They would return his wife and daughter to him, otherwise they would pay for this. He was beside himself with rage. He would personally rip Lentian's head off and take everything he had. The Tianlun tribe is in turmoil. The goblins have returned with an unexpected cargo. They have brought prisoners. The head of the tribe was surprised to see that the goblins had evolved, and that power and magic emanated from them. One of them is the Furious Goblin, a mutant, level 71, with the title and class of a bone-crushing warrior blessed by God. The second is Earth Goblin, level 72, with the title of Ideal Assassin, no class, blessed by God. The power of the Furious One has almost reached the level of the Earthly One. It is a pity that he is only a variation of the mutated one. Despite the Furious Goblin's inferior stats, its overall strength has caught up with that of the Earth Goblin. Perhaps specializing in the assassination class gave him an advantage in combat power. With the addition of equipment, he could become even more dangerous. The girl from the Monitor Lizard tribe screamed in horror. She was the chieftain's wife. She demanded that she, the damned goblins, be released. "She is the chief's wife, and no one dares to grab her. She demanded to be released." They grabbed her by the hair, demonstrating Lentiana. "She will force the chief to kill everyone. No one will escape." The young and mature captives were prepared as gifts for the chief. One young, the other mature, they are very appetizing. They turned out to be the family of the leader of the southern region himself, the damned Mantis. Varantia confirmed, "Yes, she is his wife. She thought that they were afraid of her power, but it was too late. Her husband will take revenge." The fear came too late. The leader knew who they were. Lentian smiled. "This is the wife of the Mantis, who threatened to divide his clan and kill him." He remembered how this chief had threatened to destroy his clan. Now he was burping on her. She didn't understand what he was doing. The wife was horrified. She wanted him dead. Without hesitation, Lentian took out his crossbow and fired. The arrow was accurate. Blood flowed from the wound, instant death. She fell without a sound. Death took her, and no one protected her. And the goblins were given permission to do the rest. They bowed gratefully, wishing their leader long life. The goblins jostled each other, greedily striving to be the first to the captives. Each demanded his share, their greedy smiles shining. Lentian asked why they had captured only 2 captives. They had fought with a tribe of praying mantises and had eaten them all completely. A few were left behind to allow them to reproduce and be hunted again. Hearing this, the tribe leader frowned. They didn't act according to plan, the goblins thought. Could they have made a mistake? They will do this again, and not let the chief down. The goblins tried to justify themselves, begging not to punish them for their mistake. Lentian laughed and praised them for their successful sortie. He especially noted Furious, praising him for his initiative. He didn't raise him in vain. He knows how to capture and bring back prey. The chief noted that it would now be more interesting to look at the leader's face, especially when he learns that his house has been looted and his family is dead. Varen approached the goblin camp, demanding the return of his wife and daughter. His eyes were blazing with rage, magic emanating from his mouth in a green light. His gaze slowly faded as he looked at the gnawed bones of those he had once sworn to protect to the death. Before him, the goblins were finishing off the remains of the family. Too late. Nothing more could be faked. They could not be returned. 2 skulls lay side by side, a wife and a daughter. These vile animals dared to touch them. Lentian emerged from the shadows, ready for battle, sword in hand. He mocked the Monitor Lizard. He had come too late. Mad with grief, Varan swore revenge. He thirsted for blood, and he was not going to stop at anything. The first blow came instantly. A column of fire rushed out of the lizard's mouth, burning everything in its path. Lentian used his magic. Everything around was enveloped in blue mist. Varen received a blow. His flame stopped, but the anger did not fade. The wound flared with pain. A wave of enormous force picked up and threw the Monitor Lizard back. But Lentian was nearby and was not going to retreat. Lentian struck with his dagger, piercing the leader's chest, and black blood gushed out in a stream. The pain was terrible, but the fight must go on. His family must not be left unavenged. Blood was oozing out of his chest. Varan tried to hold back the flow with his palm. The advantage was on Lentian's side. Varan teased Lentian. Was he blind and lost sight of him? Why doesn't he advance? Lentian promised since he came to die he will help him with this. This is the eastern part. Most likely he will not be able to summon monsters here. Chief Varen promised to destroy Litan without anyone's help. He does not need servants to destroy such a small goblin. Suddenly his body glowed, veins bulged. He used the growth stimulation technique. His body began to grow, becoming covered in scales. Strength filled him. His muscles became filled with power. The earth trembled. He now had infinite power, and it was with this power that Lentian intended to fight and confront him. The goblins retreated, frightened by the enemy's changes. They warned the chief that this guy looked too dangerous. Lentian already had a plan. First, he would use the earth element to slow him down, and then he would infect the blood. The battle continued. One was avenging his family, the other was avenging his power. But suddenly Varan was stabbed in the back by a golden sword. Lentian was surprised who dared to fight such a ruler. Even he had a hard time defeating him. The chief roared, pain filling him from within. The vile blow had robbed him of his chance for retribution. A holy glow appeared. The monster was finished. There was no more chance to survive. The sword cut it in half. The swordswoman stood behind, clutching the holy sword. It was she who had inflicted mortal wounds on the monster and killed Lentian's enemy. She said that she had finally found him. Her eyes were lifeless. Her gaze was lost. She looked at Lentian. Destiny had come to pass. The holy swordswoman had killed the head of the tribe. The goblins were afraid of her power. She could kill them at any moment. However, she stood to the side, not moving, as if her mind was clouded by poison, spells, or unknown magic. And suddenly she staggered and fell flat on the ground in front of Lentian. Her body and mind could not withstand such a load. He was surprised. She caught up with us despite her fatigue. And with the help of a rusty blade, she killed such a monster. It's good that she is unconscious. The goblin came closer with a triumphant grin, preparing to deliver the final blow and finish her off. But his impulse went unanswered. None of the goblins supported him. Everyone stood in tense silence and remained silent. In the distance, the goblins were whispering to each other, discussing how stubborn he was and how he knew no bounds in his anger. Lentian stopped him. Why kill her? She is unconscious and poses no threat. He was calm and reasonable. He said that her life was much more valuable than her death. In their hands she could be of great use. The order was given to tie up the holy swordswoman. The goblins hurried to carry out the order immediately. A long night passed, filled with anxiety and cold, and finally, a cloudy and quiet morning of a new day arrived. The swordswoman lay tied up on the floor, unconscious. Yue looked at her. Lentian stood next to her, watching her. Yue watched with admiration. She felt that the girl's skin was unusually soft. It resembled a porcelain doll. And suddenly she began to come to her senses. Her eyes opened slightly, but the traces of the past made themselves felt. Her strength was exhausted. She saw the Goblin Slayer Knight and Lentian in front of her. He was smiling and reminding her that they hadn't seen each other for so long. She suddenly jumped up. She was happy. She finally found him. She had been looking for him for so long and found him. Yue clung to Lentian. "Don't fuss," he said. "Your energy is too low to harm us." But she didn't answer. She only screamed shrilly Goblin. Yue and Lentian were shocked. Her strange behavior, it was not like her. Lentian wondered what had happened to her. She was out of her mind. Lentian was surprised by her unexpected reaction. Varan raised his hand, and his voice sounded like a command. The goblins were to grab her and hold her at any cost. She suddenly jumped up and rushed forward towards Lentian. Even though her hands were tied, she ran forward. The goblin didn't even notice how in the blink of an eye the rope was torn from his hands, thereby granting the saint freedom. There was silence. The tension was growing. Lentian stood before her unarmed. She quickly rushed towards her, avoiding capture. The goblins watching what was happening had no doubt that this would be the end of the chapter.